Can you serious? This is what it's like. I've never had this.
I know.
All right, we are good to go.
Welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. We're here for an Orange Township Board of Trustees special meeting to discuss some zoning matters before the township. Ms. Bonnie, if you could, we'll call this meeting to order. Ms. Bonnie, if you could please call roll.
Yes. Trustee Grumbles.
Here.
Trustee Knapp. Here. And Trustee Faust. Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First matter before us is rezoning application ZON 22-04 related to Evans Farm and BZ Evans LLC. Introduce it.
Good evening, Board. I will go over the staff report briefly. This is an application from Evans Farm Land Development Co. LLC. It is concerning all parcels within the single-family portion of Evans Farm Planned Residential District, which is roughly 425.5 acres. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the currently effective zoning development plan for the Evans Farm Single-Family Planned Residential District, approved under various previous applications. This amendment is requesting a reduction in the alley width within Evans Farm. The currently effective zoning development plan was approved under 6 former applications. The formal rezoning application for this amendment was submitted to the zoning office on March 25, 2022. The site is surrounded by mostly residential, planned residential in the north, which is Evans Farm, continuing into Berlin Township. To the south, single-family homes in Old Lewis Center Village. To the east, single-family planned residential subdivisions in Bryn Mawr and Meadows at Lewis Center. And to the west, bordered by single-family homes in an FR1 district and the railroad. The summary of the zoning development plan changes incorporated in the applicant's amendment request, short and sweet. Section 7 in streets, alleys, and trails, heading public streets, alleys, and trails, paragraph public streets and private alleys. Item 3, private alleys shall be 15 feet in width instead of 20 feet in width. This was not reviewed by the Delaware County Regional Planning Commission. The Orange Township Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of this application.
I think we talked about this a few times in the year prior as well, Bonnie. And I have no questions at this time. I'd wait to hear from residents who are here and applicant. Board members.
And we did receive an email from a resident, and that is here in front of you today.
I didn't know if there were additional comments or not, but I did read that email. Was that the only? Okay.
That was the only comment that we received for this application.
Okay. Yep. Your show.
I'm Tony Ironman with Evans Farm. I have just a brief presentation that I don't think in all the last 15 years that I've met with Orange Township on Evans Farm, I've ever written down a presentation, but I did tonight. So it's just kind of a catch-up kind of thing. We started Evans Farm, and I started meeting with townships in the county probably around 2007, 2008. And we started getting into more detailed information with information meetings with the Township Zoning Commission, the staff, and occasionally with trustees individually. Everything was completely legitimate by the book on the Sunshine Law somewhere around 2010. We made our zoning application in 2015. Took the better part of a year. We had over 100 meetings with residents only, all surrounding our community. We probably had 100 meetings. I didn't count all the formal meetings with township and county officials. With the zoning approval in 2016. If you can flash forward to about 18 months ago, we were on a Zoom call. COVID really struck us all in a bad way, and we all had Zoom meetings. And about 18 months ago, the township trustees asked us to take our zoning our approved zoning text, which was 2 binders, each of which were probably about that thick, so it's good size, and asked us to work to simplify and consolidate the text and the plans. And we agreed to do that. We worked with Michelle and the staff, and somehow managed to take that much of 2 binders between the plain commercial and plain residential, and it turned into that binder there. And I still say it's one of the finest zoning documents, plain zoning documents that I've ever seen, and certainly I've prepared, but I can't take all the credit because Michelle and her staff helped in a big way. So it's a joint effort. Everything that was in those 2 binders is in this. It just got rid of a lot of redundancy, and we took a lot of data and put it into spreadsheets and everything like that. And in doing that, we were able to compress information and clarify at the same time. In the end, about the end of last year, this zoning book was approved as an amendment. And I think everyone is better for it. The one thing we presented back in 2016, and then again at the end of last year, is there's one item that still is unresolved, and that's the width of the alley. At the time, at the end of last year, we were working with Chief McNeil and with the state fire marshal, Lieutenant Clark also, and the state fire marshal. And it took till after the first of the year to get approval from the fire marshal, and then subsequently Chief McNeil had already written an approval letter, but going back to Lieutenant Clark to confirm that we were able to do this, they agreed that they could live with the 15-foot alleys from a public health, safety, and welfare perspective. And shortly after that, we made our application. And that's the only reason we're meeting tonight, is just to finish up what we had promised we'd be back for in 2016 and again in 21. I have done, I would probably say extensive, but I'm not sure what extensive means. I've worked for over 20 years doing research in new urban design. I've visited probably 50 communities around the country. I could go through a bunch if you really want to be here all night, but I'll save you, and unless you ask. But I will tell you, as recently as Saturday, we went through Kentlands in Maryland, which is one of the old, established, really highly regarded new urbanism communities. And the alleys there are 12 feet to 15 feet wide. That's generally what we found in all the new urbanism communities around the United States. And if you want to expand that a little bit, through my lifetime, I've looked at old urbanism communities. Like, I grew up in Linden, and you go to Italian Village or German Village or Victorian Village or Westerville. I can go to Charleston. We went to Annapolis on Saturday. So go there, and Alexandria was where the conference was. And I had these great fun times. My wife thinks I have one of the weirdest vacation photograph logs she's ever seen. I take pictures of alleys, pictures and fire hydrants and street signs sometimes. But again, we found anything from an 8-foot wide alley to a 15-foot wide alley. And just all these places. Munich was where I found the 6-foot wide alley, but that, I'm not sure you'd even call that an alley. The value of the alley is it's a tight, narrow place. It's intended as a service, a primary service access to service all the functions that back into that lot, whether it's commercial or whether it's single family or multifamily, it doesn't matter. It is a service area. It's intended for trash. It's intended for private parking. It's intended for storage. It's intended for the more functional aspects of a community. Purpose of the street is, and I can use Evans Farm as a great example. It's an open, tree-lined public space. It's for events, even if it's for casual meetings or impromptu meetings with neighbors. Sidewalks are there. Sidewalks provide walking, kids on bikes, passive recreation opportunities with more formal active recreation opportunities being in the parks. It also allows for guest parking. So 15-foot wide alley serves as an alley. I have a note here that a 20-foot wide alley serves as a street, and that's what we've found is a challenge in Evans Farm is there is no separation between public and private space. People are interpreting alleys as being a secondary north-south or east-west connector. We have documented and we've tried to correct, and I see parts of it are starting to fix already by itself that parallel parking in the alleys has always been a problem, and we're trying to get rid of it. What we found, I drove through a few different alleys today, in fact, and found that wherever there's a house being built, the builders or the subcontractors are parking in the alleys, and we've tried to chase them out to various success levels, but we continue to do that. Once the community is established, or that neighborhood is established, or that street is established, it seems the parallel parking in the alleys tends to lessen substantially. So that's one of our challenges with our alleys. In regards to the width reduction that we're requesting, we're not proposing to reduce the lot size at all. We're not proposing to increase the value of the lot size at all. All we're doing is taking the 2.5 feet that you would gain on each side of the alley and give that to the resident. It's their property. They actually own to the middle of the alley regardless. So it's just less alley to maintain. It provides a private area that allows them 2.5 more feet of space for use, for plantings, if you will, or for storage, whatever they care to do. It does not, as Chief McNeil and the State Fire Marshal has said, it does not compromise the public safety at all. They find it's very acceptable. And it brings, most importantly, it brings the focus back on the public streets. And it separates, it's an identifiable difference between, for any resident or visitor or guest, the difference between an alley and a street becomes more substantial because the alleys aren't tree lined. They're narrower. Anytime you go into a narrow hallway that you're not invited to, it feels like you're not supposed to be there. And that's exactly what alleys are for. If you're not a resident, you're not supposed to be there. You have a public street out here. It's far more gracious and far more attractive and far more welcoming. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's really the purpose for the 6 years of request, and it's been 6 years of good hard work, but it's something that we've waited long for, and the State Fire Marshal came with a letter and Chief McNeil agreed. That's why we're here. I'll answer any questions you have.
So my understanding is our zoning code doesn't have any dimensions for alleys within Orange Township. Is that correct?
It's not a typical standard of ours in the zoning code.
So how did we end up with 20 feet in the first place?
The previous fire chief thought that was a good number.
And do you have an understanding of why? Because I talked to Chief McNeil about it. So I was wondering what you know.
He wants,
before our time.
The previous fire chief wanted the supports on the ladder truck to be able to put there. Our comment is the ladder truck can fight the fire from the street. And if there's need for a truck in the backside, the other truck without the booms can be in the back. There is no water line in the back of along any of the alleys. The fire is fought from the front anyhow. So that's our position. And with the driveways as they sit, there are other opportunities. If they absolutely need to get in there, they can get in there and put the booms on the driveways if they need to.
Gotcha. The current fire trucks that we have are 18-foot outriggers when it's out, which obviously is wider than the driveway or wider than the alley. So that lines up with what Chief said, is that he said they could put the outriggers in the driveways or the apron, I think is an
And they also have the opportunity of all the public streets, because all the public streets are easily 24 feet.
And at some point, our quint will come in, which only has 12-foot outriggers, so that would fit in the alley.
Our what?
Our quint.
That's the
new
new
truck?
fire truck.
Oh, okay. I've never heard it called a quint.
That's the only thing I've ever heard.
Really?
Anyway, what is it called?
when we went down to Sutphen,
Mhm.
what were they calling it? An new engine?
Yeah, I think they say Quint these days.
How did I miss Quint? But the purpose of that whole
Was for
was
Evans
exactly
Farms.
to have, well, not just Evans Farm,
Well,
but it was to have more maneuverability. And right now we don't have ladder capability outside of a massive truck that's not ideal in multiple situations. So the new Quint will be integrated with ladder capability. So if you see our typical engine driving around now, it doesn't have ladder capability on it. It's simply there for water movement. The new is a multi-purpose vehicle. We went down and saw the manufacturing just to get a good perspective, Michelle and myself and Chief McNeil. And the utility you get for, I think the price differential was very minimal. But to have, it's similar to how our fire department, we actually have firefighter paramedics throughout all of our units. And from an ops management or operations management background, when you look at a situation like that, you know, if you have a need for medical treatment that exceeds your paramedic capacity in a typical fire department, you're kind of in trouble, right? So the utility of our staff, we pay a little more for it, but if we had a mass event or some serious accident, everybody there could do every job. And similarly, we want to have our fire trucks capable of responding and serving our residents regardless of what the need is. So the new Quint will be capable of going into that back alley, while a standard ladder truck with the larger 18-foot outriggers would be positioned in the front. And then in some of the tighter neighborhoods that exist as well, even when you look at the old village and areas in the township, the turning radiuses and such, they're just much more maneuverable. So we're really happy we're able to, with the residents' blessing of our levy, get that truck in here. So I'm not concerned with the fire truck.
Are the alleys at 15 feet still going to maintain two-way traffic? Because one of the comments that we had, from the one resident that emailed us recently, they were concerned about the 20 feet is challenging, especially when the trash cans are out and things like that.
We had that same exact discussion and question from Berlin Township Zoning Commission. And my response was, we really haven't a preference. And the person said, well, good, because we have a trash truck that comes in and blocks the middle of it.
How wide are the alleys there?
We haven't gotten
okay.
We're asking for the same 15 feet there too.
Okay.
They said, blocks the alley. And I said, well, that would even be more reason to have it two-way then, because you get to go the other way if they're blocking that way. And that seemed to make sense. A car is 6 feet wide. If it's narrow, people tend to slow down, which is what an alley is supposed to do. We don't want people racing. We don't have a preference either way. I suppose if I did, I would say I prefer the two-way. And if you have a trash truck blocking and someone needs to get in their driveway, they're going to go against that one way anyhow.
So a car is 6 feet, but like a minivan is 6'8", and say an F-150 is 7'3". So if you get two larger vehicles, you get a van and a truck, you may be at a point where someone has to back up.
Right. Or you do the old suburban what do they call it? The old four square, where you kind of weave in and out a little bit. But yeah.
And your driveways and such are in the back as well, so you have kind of a skirt that you can pull off of to get out of the way. It's just like
I can't think of a driveway in our community that isn't at least a 2-car garage. We have a number of 3-car along Evans Farm Drive. So, and each driveway is roughly 10 feet. So we have 20-foot sections, and if
you can angle off
if it's narrowed a little bit more, you get another 2.5 feet of driveway.
What if you have a fence at your property line? Is there a certain minimum setback that you have to
I
be
believe
from
we
the
have
edge?
setbacks. I can't remember what it is off the back, but I believe there's a setback. I can look it up if you like. I've got the handy dandy zoning text.
For a fence? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the resident sent a picture of it looked like almost like a sunroom on the back of the property that was very close to the edge of the alley.
Are they private? Are the alleys private?
The intent, I think what he's saying
Yes,
is,
they are.
Who
They're
plows
maintained by the HOA.
So the HOA plows it.
and when you were talking about it, I would have never thought of it prior, but like going down to German Village, for example, when you turn off of a main road, you know, you back up and keep going because you don't want to deal with it, right?
Right.
And it's very evident that there's a transition from a street intended for traffic and one intended for the people that live there.
And I drove through Evans Farms on the way here today, and you really can't tell the difference between what's an alley
Right.
and what's a street, unless it's where the driveways are. That's
The-
the only reason
well,
you can tell.
The text reads that, and I won't go through the chain, but single-family lots are serviced by alleys have 28-foot wide or 28-foot minimum rear setback
So that's the edge of the house.
and 18-foot rear setback for all other accessory structures.
So that's like a shed or.
The 28 is
So then are we having people that are getting variances with that?
No, you don't need it. It's 18 feet off the center line
Off
of the alley
center line.
is what it is.
So when
So-
your center
So
line
it's
right
3
now
feet
is
as
10
it sits
feet.
right
9 feet or
now.
10 feet.
So it should be 8 feet from the edge of the, currently if you've got a 20-foot alley and you've got there's a home that's like 3 feet
Yeah,
off of
8
the
feet.
edge of the alley.
It's 8 feet right now. So it'd be 10 and a half feet if you know, if my math's right. Yeah, it's, well, it's the text. It's 18 feet off the center line of the alley
And if
for accessory structures.
are residents adding additions? I would assume at this stage in the game, we're not adding additions. It's all just initial construction.
We haven't seen any variances for setbacks in the rear, so. I know a few people have enclosed their property and it's run through
I've seen fences.
Right.
Quite a
town,
few.
yeah.
Michelle, is there any requirements for alley or for roads in the zoning resolution?
No.
Okay.
Well, driveways there are, yes. And that's, public roads, it's 20 feet minimum.
For what?
For public roads, 20 feet
Public
minimum.
roads are 20, but there's no specifications other than.
We have no standards for private alleys.
If a resident wants to build a fence in Evans Farm, is there a process they go through for HOA approval or anything?
Yeah, it goes to the town architect,
Okay, and
which
then,
serves as the HOA representative in that.
and then when they build, is there a verification of what's transpired?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like there's some situations where there's not.
There is one that we're working with the homeowner on right now.
Okay. The number one question I had, you answered, and it was lot size. I was curious if we were going to see a transition in lot sizes.
Smaller lot sizes.
Yeah, and I was happy to hear that that's not being requested. And I wanted to touch too on your comments about the zoning text. The big reason, you were correct, the big reason that came about is in my first year, Evans Farm was at every meeting. And there were just little nuances and things that we were talking about gutters, or we were talking about gutters was one. I
Yep.
forget the other. I mean, the gutter was like 3 inches off or something. It became clear that things were so overly particular in certain areas and not particular enough in others that I asked for that effort so that we wouldn't have to have a meeting every week. Because, I mean, it was literally every meeting you were here. And Michelle and we sat down and they did some good work, and I'm happy to see that the binder's much smaller now. It was 2 big binders. I still have them.
So,
I appreciate that the lot sizes aren't changing.
so they aren't requesting in this application that lot sizes change, correct?
No.
The only thing they are requesting is to reduce the alley
But,
width.
yeah, some more
But
grass.
my concern is this in conjunction with the change they made, what was it, last year, to change the different lot sizes. So there's like, what, two different measurements, one large and one small, basically.
The previous revisions they made, so the minimum lot size has always been 40 feet there. The change that we made is that at the time there was only X amount of 40 feet, X amount of 50 feet, X amount of 60-foot lots, and those numbers were taken out. But the minimum lot size remains as 40 feet, and then
The mix changed.
Yeah, they were different,
And-
different designations, like
And
4 or 5.
with each of those lot sizes, there was a whole each of them had a setback requirement.
Mhm.
And many of them were the same, but every once in a while it would shift another couple feet. So we were asked to consolidate that. So everything from 40 to 85 or 90
Yeah, it's
is
in
the
two
same
tiers
setback
now.
now, and then the large
So, yeah,
lots
2
have.
tiers. That's the word.
So
Yeah,
prior to that, I think is where some of the
There was a lot of
nuances or
questions.
5 tiers.
exceptions are.
But is it not correct that now this could help you actually have more 40-foot, the minimum, have smaller lots overall per that change? Is that not correct?
Well, that's the minimum lot width. So I would say it would impact the depth more than the width.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying is that overall, when the new homes are built, it could end up making smaller lots.
No, I don't
The
think
minimum lot depth did
no,
not
because
change.
the width is changing, not the length.
Yeah,
The depth.
you don't think that?
No, I think the one thing that if you want to try and find where the financial impact is on this, it's pretty simple. It's in pavement, right? It's cheaper to grow grass than it is to pour asphalt. And frankly, I'd rather see grass than asphalt. We have an abundance of that in our area, but that's where there's a financial impact. It's not to get more lots. I think that it's just when you look at what the concept was originally, this has come up repeatedly as a goal of the new urbanism since I've started. At
Well, my
least.
concern is that when we approved this way back when I was here in what, like 2016?
Uh-huh.
16? Was
Yeah.
it 16?
Mhm.
When that was approved, like you've come in so many times since then that the development is becoming an entirely different animal. And I kind of feel like, what's the old phrase where you just keep taking one bite of the animal, whatever animal it is, you just keep taking one small bite. And in the end result is something really vastly different than what was originally proposed. You know, when you have the different tiers and all these little adjustments, I just don't want to see many more changes to this. Do you think you'll be making many more requests to change? I mean, it does look great. I drove through it. I have to admit, it's beautiful.
Good,
And I'm
thank
really
you.
happy with it, and it's better than I even thought. But as it stands now, but I'm concerned that you'll continue to come in and kind of tweak different things and continue to make things smaller. And do you intend to do that? Any more changes?
To answer your question directly, we have no intentions of doing that. We like being here, but we don't really want to take up your agenda. We don't want to take your time up, and we have no intentions of being here. Just in response to your one question, back before 2015, when we made the application, the smallest lot size was 40 by 135, and that still is the smallest lot size. It hasn't changed at all.
But now you can make more smaller lots because they changed.
We can, but
But the other thing is to think of, they could make more 40-foot lots, but the overall lot total remains the same.
Doesn't change.
So
But
it
then-
would.
Yeah, but then in a few years, when this huge recession hits, would you come back in and say, well, we're having hardships, we can't build this out, so we're going to ask for additional homes, additional.
I don't
number
think
of
so. I
lots?
think what's going to happen is when we build out, if the market drives smaller lots, and we're starting to see a big pickup in larger lots on the east side, the market initially didn't push the larger lots, but we're seeing that upswing there. We've been approved for X number of lots in a range of that size.
Mhm.
If it tends to go towards the smaller lot size, we're going to have additional open space for the community. If it goes more towards the upper lot size, we're going to have a reduction in lot counts because one 80-foot lot equals two 40-foot lots. And just, not trying to be trite, but
Right.
there's only we are permitted so much area in Orange Township, Evans Farm to build. And that's all. And that's how we're proposed.
But you can always come back in and
We
request a
could.
rezoning and say, oh my gosh, you built all these tiny lots and now we've got this huge.
We could.
And the homeowners
I
are
don't
like,
foresee
we're
it.
tired. I've heard this, I've been in zoning since 1998.
Mhm.
That's a very long time. And the homeowners get sick of maintaining it. They've got to pay for it. And one day they're like, oh, we have a great idea. Let's see if we can sell part of this off where we're tired of paying for it, or it just seems like wasted space, or, they fall in difficult financial
Mhm.
times. There's a lot of, nothing is ever permanent. And so,
Right.
you know, you can request
I've seen
anything.
people do that too, yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, even you could have a 20% open space or provide 30% above and beyond the zoning commission, what they require, and then come back and request it, you know, if you
We
want to
could.
take a few, I mean, there's all kinds of things that
Right.
can happen.
I would suspect if that would happen, the community of however many single family and however many multifamily residents are in Evans Farm would rise up. And I don't think I'd want to face that. It's
Well,
There's
and
some
what
good
is your
folks
primary
that-
reason for this request? It's
just to reduce the alley,
just for the
just to
homeowners
create a
use
hierarchy
and
of
the asphalt.
private space and public space. That's the only thing we're here for.
You don't think, okay, so this shouldn't change anything about the lot size?
Nothing
or
else.
overall?
The one, I did want to reiterate one thing too from our prior discussion. Your comment again, it's exactly why I surfaced my concern, because they were here so often. And it was like, why are you, you know, it was pretty much every meeting, if not every other meeting for a while. And when you sit down and you look at the collective requests that are being made, it was the gutter one. I just remember being like,
Well, yeah, but this is
Yeah.
more substantive. than
yeah,
that.
yeah, right. And so
the
that's
same
what
with the
that's what we
tiers.
wanted.
That's a big one. The tiers, to me, I don't know if I would have approved that one, but I mean, I understand because it gives them the ability to build more, you know, smaller lots overall. I'm just concerned there'd be this is a pretty substantive.
I think it
change
was
to
the
make.
type of gutter or something. It was like a brass gutter or something, or I don't remember. But
Eve overhangs or
yeah,
whatever.
it was a couple of inches. But the bottom line is that the request was that get all of the stuff that's causing this ironed out, so that this doesn't continue to happen. And then, in his defense, this was on the docket. The problem is because there were outside agencies involved, it took longer than ideal, or it would. I believe it would have been addressed previously, and we wouldn't be discussing it today.
So
Yeah,
you
and-
don't intend to sell or change any of the open space in the future?
No.
I mean, I guess if you sold everything off.
I'm not trying to defend us, but I will. Evans Farm is a new urbanism community, which is a new concept in Central Ohio, in all of Ohio, actually. Excluding Marymount down in Cincinnati, if you're familiar with Marymount. If you're not, you ought to, because it's a wonderful place, which was built before 1900. Evans Farm is the first new urbanism community in over 100 years in the state of Ohio. And there is a new one now called Union Village, which is being developed by a friend of mine who I saw over the weekend at our conference, which is down between 71 and 75, just north of Cincinnati, but they only have about 20 houses under construction, so they're brand new. But whenever you have something new and something unique that the county engineer standards don't quite apply to, and the county engineer standards don't have an alley either. So that's how unique it is. So while we were in here every month, and we apologize for being here and
It
consuming
was part of
agenda time.
It wasn't your
But
alone problem
I
alone,
think
though.
in the end, it's always been a joint effort between the development and the township. It's a town center. It's what your comprehensive plan
We
said.
didn't. You hit the nail on the head. I don't think it was any one side.
Mm-mm.
I think it collectively was so new that they didn't have the knowledge base or experience to get it right the first swing, which is hard to do either way.
Yeah.
I actually just drove for a soccer tournament this past weekend to the neighborhood he's referencing, and it looked identical to Evans Farm. It was a little hillier terrain down there, and the only thing that stood out to me was the lots didn't look quite as large. It looked like the houses were even a little bit maybe closer together, but looked like the same builders. I mean, they were very, very similar. It was nice.
So see, back in the day, some of us predicted that they would come back and do exactly what they're doing, requesting like this smaller lots. Not necessarily the tiered thing, but requesting smaller lots.
Yeah.
So it's something that some of us predicted that.
Yeah.
We're not
And-
asking for any smaller lots, so. And
Well,
what
in
was
your
already-
application last year, where you're requesting to have.
And I don't think that would have been approved if the goal was to get more lots out of it. I think that the goal was just to have the flexibility to accommodate the demand that might come or not. Where before you know, if you're marketing at Evans Farm and you say, hey, customer comes in and says, my budget's $550 and I want this house and the house is this much. And I would only qualify to build that on a medium-sized lot. Well, we're out of medium lots.
Oh, but there's something to be said about a variety of lot size, not just tiny lots.
Yeah, and I understand. I
You
understand.
don't want a bunch just
We weren't going to allow more lots because
Well, not now. We'll see. I mean, who knows
No.
in 4 years? I mean, we could be gone. I
We
mean,
could
you just
be.
never.
Okay, back to the alley thing. How do we enforce the no parking in the alleys? Because it is. Right now it's all.
That's an excellent question, and I'm not sure I have an answer. Even if we post it, there's not an entity. I mean, we don't have
Right,
the police
force.
powers.
Can you post it?
We can, but I guess my question would be, in posting it, who enforces it?
I would still post it.
I would
though.
still
gonna
post it.
suggest the
Yeah,
same thing
I would just
because
post it.
even if it's not enforceable, people driving through might think it's a public road. You could say private drive, something like that, and then the people that are invited to come back there or the people that live there would know that. But I would seriously put private drive or something on there, even if it's not enforceable by any. It would be, wouldn't it be trespassing? You could trespass
Well,
someone.
I was
if they-
thinking more in line of the parallel parking in the alley and things like that.
yeah,
Can you just say no parking?
to make
We can.
HOA standards.
So
Yeah.
Well,
as I was telling Tony, my aunt lives in Baldwin Park, which is in Orlando,
Mm-hmm.
which is a new urbanism area as well. And so I asked her, we went to see them over spring break, and then I called her a couple weeks ago and I was like, hey, can you measure your alley? So
What did she say?
11 feet, 8 inches. Now, I'm sure it's one way. It's not
Yeah,
two
I
ways.
would
And
believe
their aprons are, on one side of the road was 5'8", and then
Wow.
one was 7 foot. So that's not as deep as ours, the driveway space basically. So ours is bigger than what they have. And she said it's incredibly narrow and really, really hard to get around. So hopefully by the fact that you're asking for 15 and not 12, and like I said, your driveways are much deeper. It won't, it'll be good. And I also serve at a ministry downtown, and I measured their alley, and there's the street that the ministry is on is on Morrill Avenue. So I went and took the trash out, and then I measured that alley, and that alley was 12 feet. Again, one way. So yeah, I think 15 feet is bigger than these other places.
And if it would please the board, if we posted it at each end of the block of private alley.
I would think the residents would appreciate that too,
Yeah.
as long as they were okay with it collectively or majority, right? I wouldn't want to impose on your resident base. So
Yeah, what would you say? You'd say private alley?
I don't know. I was
or-
just going to ask, what would
you suggest? Yeah, private alley.
private drive. I would just say private drive.
Yeah. maybe
What else?
private
we
drive.
get feedback from the residents there here.
I mean, they're going to be talking.
give them a
next.
70 mile an hour
thanks.
speed limit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even like if you look at apartments and they say don't block the dumpster,
They block it.
because or your car will be towed. I mean, who's enforcing that? Someone could enforce
Yeah.
it, but it's
Well, you have
really
to-
different.
I had to do that once when I lived in an urban loft in downtown Cleveland. You have to call. You would have to go into an agreement with a company,
Right.
and then resident could
Yeah,
call.
but it's
There's a
doable. But
violator.
it is doable, and if someone, technically trespassing too, if someone were to just park along. Now, are you concerned then? You're not concerned about a car being parked there and the fire truck's coming up. Yeah,
The Quint can handle that.
Because in New York City, they
I
just
hate
run
to
right over
use
the
old
car. or
examples,
whatever,
but
I don't think we're gonna do that here.
when my wife and I were first married, we moved into a cul-de-sac down in Linden, right off of Oakland Park. And it might be the narrowest cul-de-sac I've ever seen, small, radio-wise. And I was talking to the fire chief, the head of the fire department for the city of Columbus, who's pretty powerful. I said, what would you do? I mean, people park here, even though it says no parking. What would you do if there was a fire? And he said, have you ever seen our trucks? This kind of dates you because I'm sure the Quint costs more than this. He said, we pay $700,000 for our fire trucks. I'm sure you guys paid more. And he said, they're too expensive to leave down there. He said, we have every right to move that car in any way we want, including dividing it in half if we want with the jaws of life and moving it on either side of the fire truck so we can go. So,
But that would not happen here.
no, it
I mean,
wouldn't. It
I've
wouldn't,
seen
and
that
that's
in
why
New
I
York
said.
City,
I
but
think with the skirting
city
and everything,
promise.
they would be able to get around it.
Yeah.
It would just be a matter of reseeding a couple
yeah, I mean,
yards.
people do that all the time, and I mean, who hasn't parked in a fire lane at the school or whatever? But it could,
Lawbreaker.
and not me. I've never done that ever. But you know, it happens, and next thing you know, it's the day that there's a fire, and,
Yeah.
and you know, it's during a football game or whatever. But
Confessions of a
that-
Township Trustee.
Flat away in handcuffs. But yeah, that would be my concern, is that people don't always follow the rules, and
We could put, private drive, no parallel parking or something like that.
Yeah, what
underneath
about
it.
Say no parking.
private drive, and then no parking on how long?
No
are
parking, private drive.
The other option too, if you go to Gov Deals, you can find the police actually auction off their old spike strips, and we could integrate that into the asphalt.
That's very pleasant.
Terrible.
So what about two signs, like when you're entering, it would say private drive, and then along, could you put, how long are the alleys?
I'm thinking along Evans Farm Drive, which probably is one of the longer ones. There's 9, round up for math is 70-foot lots are a little bit smaller, so it's about 600, roughly 600 feet.
Maybe you could put signs along, not necessarily, no, in the, what are our subdivision standards, or maybe put, a sign every 25 or 30
Well,
or 50
certainly at
feet.
the entrance of each alley,
That's what I was thinking.
just have
Yeah,
one as
but
people
maybe a
come in.
couple even along the alley itself, because people
You
will.
have to weed whack around them. Just need to weed whack around them. Signs in our yard.
Maybe just a couple to remind people in the middle.
Entrance and exit. That way people,
And
But
if-
then people will pull in and then they'll forget. It's like, it's like speeding signs throughout the neighborhood. You can't just put them at the beginning
Yeah.
and the exit, because everyone does it. They park and then they don't realize that they can't park there.
But and I offer this as just discussion, if the board and the staff want to come up with the proper information on the sign, we'll agree to put one, each entrance or however you guys
I think
want.
that'd be sufficient for me personally. But again, I'm not a resident there,
Yeah.
and I want to respect their desire as well.
Yeah.
It's similar to when we talked about the garden and things like that, and the concern was the aesthetics, whether it's going to add to the neighborhood or detract and be an eyesore. And we had gardeners buy homes shortly after they started because they fell in love with the neighborhood, which was great. It wasn't intended, but they like the idea of being able to walk. And I saw another resident yesterday that I knew and waved, and he moved into one of the condominiums and brought his 2 dogs over to check out the garden. And that's the idea of that area. I think is a walkable community, truly walkable community, and it's nice to go over after meeting several folks there and waving, and So I would just say it's a discussion that I think merits, that would warrant having with the residents as a whole.
Sure.
Electronically or in person.
Or what about the county engineer's office? Maybe they would have some suggestions, since they're.
We have daily, just about, our engineer has about daily conversations with Mike Love, who's the traffic
Because you said
engineer.
it could be up to 600 feet. Is that right? The alley?
I think that's the longest block we have. And don't hold me to that, but that's the longest I can think of.
Maybe one every 100 feet. I mean, I think it's
That's almost 32 lots. That's a lot.
maybe
Yeah.
one in the middle.
Okay.
Not one in the
So
middle.
Every 300
let.
feet.
It sounds like we're agreeing then on that, having that discussion, and I think what we could do is agree to have conversation with the engineer's office as well, or you can, but to just have the coming together, if you will, after the fact, right, to align, get consensus on, what the official government kind of point of view is or perspective.
Mhm.
But again, I think that we'll want to have the residents as well involved for sure. They've invested heavily in that area and want to respect that investment. Does the board have other questions, or do we want to hear from our
I'd like to
residents
hear from
now?
residents.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
So the residents coming up, just introduce yourself if you have anything to say. Your name and address, please, and then share your comments, and we'll have Mr. Ironman and the board address those, and then we'll follow up with the decision.
Hi, my name is Patsy Cashchalk, and I'm a resident of Evans Farm. I've been there for 2 years. We actually moved from Marymont, so I'm very familiar with both ends of it, and that's one of the reasons that we were attracted to Evans Farm. I'm at 1906 Poplar Place. As I was listening to some of the things that Mr. Ironman has said, I've sent you some pictures. I disagree with several of the comments that he said about the buildings having to be a setback. There's one house that literally is 2 feet off of the alleyway. So I sent you a picture of it. I have a concern, anybody coming around in that alleyway, if the alleyways have cars that are parked at the very end of the driveways, and the alleyways are reduced in size by 5 feet, and that house is literally 3 feet off the alleyway. I don't know how somebody cannot hit that house. The second thing I would say is when Mr. Ironman was talking about the alleyways, most of the alleyways that he was referencing seem to be in larger lots. In our situation, we are actually going from an alleyway to an alleyway to get out of our driveway. So we have to go from a 20-foot lot to a 20-foot road to a 20-foot road. I also shared with you some pictures of a fence, and I said I submitted a request to consider not putting a solid 8-foot high fence on an alleyway at a corner before we even built. And obviously it happened. So getting from our house, going around a curve with a 20-foot or an 8-foot fence right on an alleyway, and you narrow the alleyways to by 5 feet on both the alleyway you're going into and the alleyway you're coming from, I don't know how cars are going to get around the curve. I don't know. And I also don't, I respect that you want to post signs and spend money doing that. I will tell you that is just absolutely, you can't change human nature unless somebody puts a ticket on their window. So, I thank you for considering that, but I will tell you that half of the time I can't get down my drive or down my alleyway because there's cars parked on the side. Tonight, coming here, a car in their driveway, the car literally was right at the alleyway because we only required the length of a car for a driveway pad. So coming around the corner was another car. I was coming out the alleyway. You can't make the curve. So danger. Now, let's talk about Rumpke. That is just, you are setting up an accident to happen. There is no way that a Rumpke truck, in my opinion, can make it from a 15-foot alleyway to a 15-foot alleyway with a fence on the front and a car sitting in a driveway. I cannot imagine the number of accidents would happen there. So I submitted this. I signed up for something. You guys are testament that you're hearing amendments coming in weekly, monthly, whatever it is. People signed up, and we chose to come to this community based on a situation and some sets of zoning requirements that were laid out. And now, every week you're hearing different amendments proposed. It's changing the whole entire environment that we signed up for. And we were early adopters, so maybe that's the problem. But you know what? This development would not be where it is if those early adopters were there. And now you're penalizing us by changing things. Now this is I'm speaking for future because I hope they won't change my alleyway. But what are you doing with that land? You're saying you're giving it back to the homeowners? So you're gonna make their lots longer? Like, I don't understand, like,
It won't have pavement on it. So instead of it being a paved alleyway, it'll be either a driveway extension
so
or
what's
grass.
the point? What's the point?
They'll
I
have
don't-
more yard.
2 feet? Like, what's the point? You're gonna make a danger zone for 2 feet? Like, who, people don't even, and you're telling me people don't even care about the backyard. I mean, I've heard that numerous times. Don't worry about what you put in the backyard. You drive down Poplar, you drive down any of those 2 alleyways that go between Poplar, I will tell you, you have houses that are less garages. There's one being built right now. God bless them. I love my neighbors, but it's 6 feet off of the street on a corner with a fence that's 8 foot high.
This house in particular, I would question.
That house is 2 feet or 3 feet. So you're telling me that who's judging? I mean, who's approving
Enforcing?
these?
Yeah.
This is dangerous.
What street is that?
It's an alleyway off of Linden. It would be north of Linden. It's in phase 2.
Can you, okay.
I don't know what the street.
I would just let,
It's on Linden.
For the alleys also?
yeah, it should be.
So,
That clearly is less than 3 feet,
Yeah.
or 6 feet, or 8 feet.
It should be 8 feet. It should be 8 feet off of the edge.
The edge of the pavement.
There's absolutely no way that's 8 feet.
Right. The edge of the, well, no, it's 18 feet off the center line, and it's 20 feet wide. So
I'd have to
10
look at
feet
the
of
permit.
road.
I don't know.
And I will tell you that my fireplace I was not allowed to put it back in the back of my property because it was required to be 20 feet. Now I could pull up my emails that when this was submitted, 20 feet off of the center line. So my fireplace on a small lot is in the middle of my yard because I couldn't go that close. I mean, my flower bed is in my lot further than that house.
Robert, are you
That's
familiar
dangerous.
with this? Do you know how that could have been built? I mean, I know you probably have.
I'm sorry, I'm terribly passionate about this
It's
because
okay.
if people don't speak up, this is going to be a disaster.
When I also wanted to mention that we're not seeing the changes that we did prior. That was in my first year in 2020. I asked for them to.
This is my neighbors who has it's a pool house on a lot, and it's 6 feet off of the alley. Right across
6
the
feet
street.
off of the alley the edge of the pavement.
Right.
6 feet. And what's the setbacks again from the
18 feet, I
from
think
the
is what he said.
center line?
Yes.
Center-
So 8 feet off the pavement.
But if it's a side alley, is that what it is? Okay, then the side alley is 6 feet.
6 feet from what?
Off of the center line?
But if these are all side alleys,
6
what do you
feet
mean?
from the center
These
line?
are all,
The rear alley where the garages are versus a side alley. It would go down.
well, his
Or
pool house is
near
on the
road.
same alley that my house is.
Right. So
My
that would be a
driveway.
problem if it's not 8 feet.
It is not 8 feet.
Who inspects those?
Who inspects them? This clearly is,
That's a side.
that's a main alley though.
Okay, so we're talking about roads versus alleys. Is
Correct.
that what we're talking about? So, Robert, do you have any insight into how that could happen, or what that is, or if that's?
Well, I'm going to just,
Well, I
to
just want
the
to
comments, I'm going to let Tony comments, give us information
Yeah,
on
but-
what we're looking at.
Yeah, but I mean, are you familiar? Is this possible that could be legal for some reason because it's
Yes,
center
because
line?
it was enforced as a side setback, so it's the side of the house. So that side is 6 feet. I'm just
Okay, so you're going to approve
Okay.
this on a 15-foot lot. How are you going to get garbage down there? I mean, like, ugh, it's so
Are
frustrating.
there driveways off other parts of that?
It's off the back. Yes, right across the street from it. It's not directly across because it's not a lot that's been sold yet.
But how's that 6 feet off the center of the road? The road's 15 feet. Oh, because it's 2 or 3 extra feet off the. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
When you lived
look
in,
at
you said you
that,
were in, lived it from Marymount. What were your alleys there?
I didn't live on an alley, so I can't tell you.
But you see the sides going down, there's additional perpendicular alley that would be accessible for the garages.
Right, so you're telling me that those are going to be 15 to a 15. You're going to feed a 15 into a 15, and having cars, the driveways are probably about 6 feet from the corner. So having a car right at the corner, I'm just telling you, we cannot even use one alley because it's so
Where's the
dangerous.
one that's close? If it was, okay, so there's a 20-foot wide alley and center line would be 10 feet.
It's right in the pictures.
So how's that?
Go up north a little bit, Michelle.
It
I
has to
think
be-
that's the one we just saw a picture of.
That's the one you just saw the picture
So it
of.
has to be 6 feet off the center line,
Yes.
but yet the center line is 10 feet in. So it could be built into the road, into the alley?
I think it's 6.
No, I think it's a 10-foot setback on, and I haven't done a permit in a while,
So it's 10 feet off the center line?
Literally right off.
from the center line.
It's
So it's
heavy-
And the-
literally right on the edge of the pavement. It's allowed.
And you think that's safe?
No.
Well, it's existing now.
Yeah.
I see that. Do you think that's safe? I will guarantee that house will be hit. And I hate to say that, but honestly,
so many
that
more
is,
homes could be built. Like,
yeah.
they're
So
that close.
then you narrow the streets.
So you can basically build every single house after that. Well, you could do it now, but with a 20-foot alley.
I don't think you're going to tear up any alleys, are you?
No.
No, but I'm saying in the future, this means that you'll be able to build homes just like the one that she was talking about, and they'll be even closer. The alleys will be even more narrow.
The homes will be closer together if they're on both sides. If you look at the way they've designed the neighborhood, you don't have a side and a side together is what it looks like to me. It looks like the sides are to a back. So you don't have, you're not going to have two sides sandwiching each other like that. So you would still have a setback, a larger setback on the east side in this case. Where
So the
lots-
house is a less setback than a driveway?
Apparently, on the side lot, yes.
Well, we have not been able to get those requirements because Deanna's promised them to the homeowners, and we've not seen those. We've talked many times, and so I just think that's very dangerous.
What's the minimum?
Talk about those people backing out of those driveways.
What is the minimum length of the lot then, Michelle?
So I'm looking at this particular permit, the length of the lot is, the minimum length is, or depth is 135. This is a 57-foot lot width. Because it is on a side and back alley, there's a 10-foot building line on the side here. However, this
From pavement?
from center line. So this bump out here is about 3.5 feet to the pavement.
I said 3. I didn't take a tape measure over to. It's
Looks
close.
small. in the
It's
picture.
close.
So if 135 is the minimum depth, and then they are requiring smaller alleys, then they could still be crunching all the homes together closer to the lots, correct? They could still be.
Well,
You could,
according to you, you're not taking any of that alley and doing
No.
repositioning.
So if the lot is
it.
158 feet deep, it's still going to be 158 feet. It's just there's an extra 2.5 feet. Of
Okay, I would like to have that written in law
but they would still
because
be
I will guarantee
closer
that's
because
not what's going to happen.
if the
That
alley
15
is-
feet is going to disappear. 2 feet
No,
on
it won't
either
make the
side.
alley. But if the minimum is 135 and then that 20 feet shrinks to 15, the whole thing keeps, there'll be, still could be closer. It could put more homes on.
Well, that's my
smaller amount of
point.
property.
No,
That's my point, but he's
If you
saying that
expand-
they
if
are
you
not
zoom-
going to reposition
If you
this.
zoom out on the map,
How many more lots are left?
if you zoom out on the map,
5 phases.
there's the, so stop right there is perfect. Nothing with the lot lines is changing at all. Just the
In
pavement
this
area.
phase, in these 2 phases.
No, anywhere in the future.
Wait, have these already been?
Well, we
the-
don't know what the lot.
This area that we're looking at.
Yes, but
The
we don't
lots
know
are
anything
already
more.
done. The plat's
Right, those are
done.
2 phase 1 and phase 2 that are being built right
Yep,
now.
the plats are done. So those
So those won't change. Or
those
could
aren't
they?
changing.
Wait, they haven't been. Have any of those been built yet?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's all planned.
The whole development is platted?
No.
Is this
Everything
those?
you see there that shows lines. is
Okay.
planned.
So,
So we have
So
all that
then
there.
to the northwest of that, the same lot sizes are going to be in those areas
But they'll be closer and closer together. They could be 5
Correct.
feet closer together.
No, that's incorrect.
No, there's not. 5
What's
feet
the
closer.
minimum lot depth, Tony?
135.
Minimum lot depth is 135 feet.
Yeah, so you can stack them closer rather than 20.
Correct.
The lot will be closer together to the other lot.
Right, here's
The
what I'd
lot
say.
size will still be the same.
Well, it size will still big. You'll be able to cram more into. You'll be able to cram more before you could get this many in, and now you'll cram it more into a smaller space.
We've not reduced the lot depth or the lot
Right.
size through 10 years, 12 years of discussion and 5 years, 6 years of approvals. We've not changed the lot size at all.
And the quantity of lots is approved.
Yeah, but if you don't have to have them 20 feet apart anymore, you have them 15. I mean,
It's all-
The
it's
apart
lot
is
size.
simply the public
Yeah, I know,
right of
but
way, which is defined by the
Right.
county engineer.
This is, it's still all within there.
So my question,
they can still keep bumping. They can, if they only have to be 20 feet apart, 15, not 20. Then you put one here and here and here. It's still they will still be minimum size, but they'll be able to cram more into a smaller area.
Lisa, the alleys are located on the backs of lots.
They're
always
within the
have been.
lot.
They're within the
It's
lot.
part
Within
of
the
the
lot.
lot.
They are
Michelle,
within
can
the
you
lot.
zoom in on
Yeah.
the plat again and
Always
show us
have
how it? You can tell.
If you
I-
look
Yeah.
at the lower part, yeah,
The part
see
that's
how
already-
the
So
alley-
each individual property owner owns half of the alley.
Correct. So
I
now
think
they just-
that the biggest concern, I think I understand, is more, it's maybe not the
Quantity
lot
of
size
lots.
or the setback, because if the setback remains the same and the alley shrinks, then there is a chance the structure itself could be closer to.
But it's still,
Could
it's
get bigger.
still an 18-foot
Yeah.
from the center
Structures
line.
on the back are- the rear setback is based on the rear property line. We're not requesting to reduce the
It'll be
setback.
further
So that's still
It'll be
18
further
feet.
from the pavement, which would be another 2.5 feet of driveway.
Correct.
Or another
What
2.5
I think what
feet
you're
of
saying
yard.
is you're worried about the quantity of lots changing, not
No.
necessarily.
No, not the quantity. I just don't. I was concerned about them being squished closer together, but if they actually own that part, that's not a concern. But now could they build even closer?
No, because it's still, the setback is still from the center line of the road, which the center line is where the center line is. It's just
So the
a-
houses will be further apart. They have to be from the pavement. They're going to be the same distance apart, but they'll be further from the edge of the pavement.
Well, so okay. So what's the current setback from the alley?
So in this case, like if you look at the one that's paved, if you take 2.5 feet off each side of that, you would have 6 feet from the edge of that house to the pavement instead of 3.5. Does that make sense? In other words, that street going north-south right there, the alley, the side alley, is just going to go this way.
The road
The
itself. will be
center line's
steeper.
not changing, nothing else is changing. So you'd have more grass on the east side of that structure. You'd have more grass on the west side of the other lots. The
So it
house
actually
is-
prevents a house being that close.
in
to
other words, the
the
house still
center
has to
line
be
of the
that
road.
far from the other house,
Right. It
from the
prevents it
setbacks,
being
because it's based on the center of the road.
correct.
But
Yeah.
okay, so wait, the road. What is the setback now from the center line? 6.
Yeah. So if you just do it like if they
Yeah.
did, I think you said
No.
18, right?
What-
18 was the rear, but what's the side?
The side, so for side, if a home faces a side, if the side of their home faces an alley, it's 10 feet.
and then fences, a 6-foot or an 8-foot fence can be right on the alley line.
What about the
Correct. That's what
main
happened.
alley? What's that?
Well,
setback?
So
Who
here's
controls the
one-
fences?
then you
Is
make
that
your
the HOA?
alleys narrower. So here's what I'm saying. I bought into this community because of the current zoning laws. Every time we change these, you may think that 5 feet doesn't sound significant and we're going to give it to grass or whatever. I will guarantee you that more of this, more of the pool deck or pool equipment shed that's across the street that's 6 feet away from the sideline, that will be what people are going to use with that extra 2.5 feet. You have then put the community in very, it's very dangerous to have 15 feet. Now, while you say that it's not tree lined, I think it's very apparent where you're going to drive. I don't think people just leisurely drive down the alleyways because they think it's beautiful to see a bunch of garages. And I don't want it to be like, whatever the communities are downtown. That's not what I bought into. That's having your back alleyway so crunched that I literally has to, and I'm a fairly big, I back in because I can't pull out, or I back in so I can pull out, because you can't back out because there is a truck usually at the end of the driveway, or there's somebody parking on off the on the edge of the street. There's no way to reinforce that. You're making the community suffer for a very. No one's asking for this other than the developers. Why change something that's today? I feel like it's very.
Boy, is it true, so Michelle, so that there would just simply 100% sure just be more grass there and no pavement.
Yeah.
So the structures would be no closer together, but people, is that making sense? Because they own, each lot owner owns that part of the alley. So the pavement width would shrink, but they still couldn't be, right? They still couldn't
Yeah,
be
so
any
I guess,
closer.
so the
Yes,
alley
I drew it.
width, the alley
I have
width is
to.
decreasing, but the setbacks are not.
So here's the 20 alley,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then with the 18-foot setback, you have the middle line, right?
Mm-hmm.
The middle line's still the middle. So there's your 8 foot currently, your 8 foot of space. If they make it 15, this is your future. You get all of this now that's also in buffer space. That makes sense?
Yeah, so they still can't
Yeah,
be
they
any
still can't be
closer.
anything.
The center
That's right.
line rule
Here's
is
the back
still.
back of the house here, and then here's the back. It's never changed.
Yeah, so the center line still would, they couldn't build any closer.
Correct.
If this was changed, they would just have less
More grass.
pavement.
Yeah, exactly. So
But
now,
is there a regulation that says they can't put anything in that green space then? I mean,
Such as your pool shed.
Yeah, that's why I'm concerned. If I guess
the fences and stuff would still go with the setback.
Accessory setback.
Yeah,
what?
it'd be the accessory setback off the edge of the pavement, the same as it is now. So it's not going to change the
It's off the
aesthetic.
center, it's off the back property.
Okay. Oh, it is. Okay, so
Wait,
it would
what?
just move. It would just move the fences further away from the road too, which would be favorable, I would think.
Robin wants to say something.
Yeah, so I think even though we've discussed that the rear setback is functionally from the center of the alley, but it's actually to the property line. The center line of the alley just happens to be
The property.
at that property line.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're all on that.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so it would still have to be the same setback, but if this was approved, could something additional be built within that extra 2.5 feet of green strip that would,
On each side.
could anything be built there and causing additional obstructions like she's saying?
Not unless the property lines change, which I don't believe is the suggestion.
So if this was, if for some reason they came in and redid her whole road and made it 15 feet, which never would happen, but if they did that and put more grass in there, it would still be the same net result. There would be just less pavement to drive on.
Yes, because the property line and the setback
And
will
there'd be
remain the
grass
same.
further away from the fence.
Yeah, and there'd still be grass. So someone in theory, I guess, could. So I was thinking, if there's grass there in an emergency, maybe someone could drive through the grass like a fire truck.
Exactly.
But unless is there any kind of structure or fence or
Only on the side ones.
yeah, do you see
From
what I'm
an
saying?
alley
Yeah,
to
I
an
see.
alley is my biggest
An alley to
concern.
an alley.
I live between two alleys.
Is there any way to maybe not?
So you're kind of on the
If
side.
you do-
You have a side open. You don't have a neighbor to. Is that correct?
No, I have two neighbors. I'm in the middle of an alley.
Oh, okay.
So an alley to an alley could be something.
It's
So-
dangerous.
Could something extra be built on an alley to an alley?
No, like when you look at
Would
this
anything
house,
change? Yeah.
they can't put a fence there.
Yeah.
On the side of that. It's absolutely no way because of there's nowhere to put it. They'd have to put in the backyard, they would have a little one, but that's the only place there's enough room.
For that house in particular.
Yeah, correct.
For other houses.
They can put it there and then it's obscuring obstructing the
And
view.
This is a good example of an alley.
Yep,
That's exactly what-
yep. The large truck sitting right in the picture for reference.
You know, it sounds like you're saying that it's the builders that are using the parallel parking on the alley.
Right.
That's not true. It's homeowners.
I'm sure.
Our driveways are so little, they can't fit their cars in, so you have cars there. The garbage trucks start to go down, they can't get through. Now he's backing up, trying to back into that alley. It's difficult.
They can't fit their car in the garage, they don't park on the street, they want to park in the back.
Has anyone talked to Ronki about this to see if they would, because they access your homes from the rear, I'm assuming from the alley,
Right.
so what if that's not enough for them to actually,
It's,
do their.
And my
Right.
concern is on the small lots. I don't have any concerns on the big lots because they have a lot of space. So I don't think that we should, I mean, I'm not addressing any of that. I'm on this side with the smaller lots. That's where the concern
So
is.
the net change would be that just simply more grass and less pavement, so if there was something going on, someone could, I guess, drive in someone's lawn.
that's correct.
But are the alley to alley?
How many, Tony, how many alley to alleys are there? A lot.
This is section 2. Section 1 has 2 on the west side of the Central Park, which is called the Hot Dog. She lives on 1 right there off of Poplar. Then there are 2 intersections on phase 2, which are just at the top edge that we were just. Those work that way because the county engineer required the alley along Pyatt, which is the road on the west side next to the water, Open Storm Drive. So there will be a few as we march up north, but they become fewer. I can't give you a number, but they become fewer as you go out into the next phases because there's more land to the northeast where the larger lots are. There's to the northwest.
But could this cause more people to build the 135 lots because they would have extra green space? I guess some people could, in theory, some people could, and there could be 135 deep lots built because people might select those more. I guess there's a chance of that because the alley will be less wide and they'll have more people.
Yeah, they want more yard.
It's 2 feet. That's why I'm saying.
But we're talking about the overall house. So in other words, if you had 180 feet and you built a house that was smaller footprint, so you would have more yard.
Yeah,
That
but you're
makes
right.
sense.
There's
You have,
regulations on the larger lot sizes on the.
There are.
The footprint.
You have to build the bigger
You have
house.
to build a bigger house.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a footprint
To keep with the
requirement.
theme of the neighborhood, obviously, yeah.
but yeah, it does seem
So
like
this
a lot for 2.5 feet. You're right. I agree with that.
I just, why are you putting people in danger? There's really no reason. No one's complaining about it. It just seems silly to.
It's to save on asphalt. And to
So
go
we're
back to-
saving on it. We
The-
pay for it.
Yeah,
As a homeowner, we're paying for it.
yeah.
So who's saving on it?
And it's not the primary factor. I do think the primary factor too is to differentiate between.
But who's complaining? That's what I said. No one's complaining about it. Did you have people knocking on your door saying, this is an issue that people are driving down the alleyways? Like, no one's complaining about it.
Yeah.
Because I will guarantee you that those lots will shrink. That 2.5 feet will not go back to the homeowners.
Or more people will select the smaller, the lots that are less
Yeah.
deep, but I mean.
In the next phases, well, Tony, why are you asking for this? Who's knocking down your door to say that 15-foot lots are a smart idea?
For the last 15 years, we've been working with the township on a new urbanism community.
I lived there,
And I understand, you did. And Marymount is a delightful
and
place.
I lived in Maryland.
And I was on the phone sitting here trying to pull up the width of an alley in Marymount. And I don't remember what they are. I
But
remember
it was
facing,
built in the 1900s when you had like
But-
horse and buggies.
but
You had
I've been
small
walking,
cars.
for the last 20 years, I've been walking communities that have been built in the last 20 years. Baldwin Park is a good example, and Kentlands, where I was on Saturday, is a great example. And Seaside and Celebration and all these other communities around the country, Stapleton. And the standard is 15 feet or less on alleys.
But who is asking? Who is asking for this? Like her question, who's asking?
It's part of the entire new urbanism community principle of walkability and people in putting cars where cars belong and opening it up and making streets more welcoming. And if they all look the same, then there is no difference and there's no separation between them. I can point to 50 at least 50 that I visited, and probably 3 or 4 times that many of new urbanism communities that have 15-foot wide alleys or less.
Yeah, but
And
why
they-
didn't
they
you ask for
function-
that in the first?
I think you
We
did.
did. We did.
You did
and
ask for it?
the fire chief
Oh, that's
wanted,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. And he
Well,
said
I
And-
think some of those things are still very valid. So, I
and
mean,
the
I
state
went
fire
around-
marshal signed off on it. So.
I went around and took pictures, and I will guarantee you, I can show you one right down the street from Dan.
So an additional
This-
2.5 feet of green space there would take that out of the alley, right?
But it would make it terribly complex for somebody to drive down a 15-foot with mirrors. Like, he has huge mirrors on the side of his car. You think driving down and driving past him would be safe to my little...
It would cause folks to slow down, and they would get by.
Yeah, but you don't live there. I do. I go through this every day. I have had to, pull over into somebody's driveway because these huge trucks with big mirrors and, you can't fit a car at the end of a driveway.
Can we see picture?
Yeah, I sent this.
I live
Is that what-
I live in
Oh,
Radnor Township on a county
Is that
road,
Park
River
Acres
Road,
Devious driveway.
and the street isn't any more than 18 feet. We have farm trucks that size with plenty of big mirrors, and they're going 60 miles an hour. And is it snug?
Similar to Bale Canyon. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I wonder.
So you make that smaller, here's another one. It's trucks, and you have them all over the neighborhood.
Yeah, that would only 6.
The driveway, they're not going to change. They're still going to be in the driveway.
Here's another
They're gonna have another 2 feet.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
driveway. The driveway will be 2.5 feet long.
But once you're in a driveway, it's the street. Now you're telling me I have to go into somebody's driveway to get around, because now it's.
Wait, well,
And
the
if there's a
driveway
car
will
parked
be
there, then it's a
2.5
problem.
So yeah, it will,
No.
I'm
right?
saying it's no problem, you
It'll
have
be
to go off
2.5
into
feet more
somebody's
driveways
driveway
out of the alley.
to get around somebody.
Yeah,
That's
but
what I heard
then you
somebody
can't
say.
drive in the grass because it'll be blocked by the.
Yeah.
That's right.
At the end of the day, I guess unless you have other comments or questions, if you're ready to decide on this.
Well, so the alley to alley thing, I'm a little bit confused about that. So can they, if this is approved, they can build more closer to the road if it's alley to alley?
No.
Someone was saying that,
It's been very clear, in my opinion anyway, from Tony, that they don't have any intention of putting the houses closer together. Their plots and their quantities are already written in. They haven't requested that to change at all, which protects against any concern there. For the next 4 years, with the two of us sitting here, I'm not approving more homes. I don't know where you stand on that, but I can say that confidently, and I've been pretty consistent there. So the number's locked in. What you're doing here is you're putting less asphalt, more green space, and you're adding more buffer to the edge of the property line because the setbacks aren't changing. And at the end of the day, when you look, zoom out again, Michelle, if you don't mind. When I look at this, these phases are spoken for. They're not changing these phases. Is that correct?
did
Okay.
they be changed? Michelle, did those phases be changed if this is approved? Or does this apply to that part of the development?
Are you going to rip up existing asphalt?
Well, no,
I don't
the
think
houses that haven't been built yet, the alley.
But the alleys are poor.
There are houses.
All the
I'll
alleys
bet you
are
there
done,
are.
right?
I'll bet you there are probably 15, 20 houses in the area that's shown just in black lines.
They're
there.
under construction.
So those
know.
alleys are alleys haven't been poured yet? Have they?
Those alleys are in.
Have been.
They're
All
we're
the-
not
all
taking
the
and
alleys.
that's why.
And
That's
those
section
phases.
2 plat. There you go.
Yeah, they're all
But
in.
you requested.
So this has
that-
already been recorded in the courthouses. These
It's not
lots are of
changing.
record.
Well, it could be recorded, but I think you can replat and change a plat.
But they're
if the
poured.
asphalt's poured, yeah.
Yeah, they're not
You
changing.
to
You
answer your
can,
question,
yeah.
Lisa, you can legally change a plat. However, everyone that owns lots in that plat, that phase of plat, has to sign off on the application to change the plat. And
Yeah,
that-
well,
I'll
if they
bet
own
you-
it, but if the developer owns it, then.
No, we don't. We've sold a number of
Okay,
those
everything's
lots.
enough for them to make, so
Oh.
there's no way to change the alleys in those sections.
You'd
I
have to
don't want
rip
to get hung
pavement
up
up.
on no way, but
Well, I do.
there is no way that we are going to change the alleys.
The
on that.
pavement's poured. It would be
That'll be done.
But the pavement is poured for every single alley in those 2 phases.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
so.
And
the point that I guess my concluding point on this is the first two phases and the people that live there have what they have.
Well, that's
If
what I
the-
want to make sure.
Yeah, and if the developer comes in and says, we're not changing our lots, the board's not approving that. We're not changing our quantities, the board's not being asked to approve that either. If they want to build tighter alleys in phase 3, 4, and 5, if people don't want it, they're not going to buy it. And they're not changing the quantities or the lot sizes or the architectural standards or any of that, then it's not going to, you know, I don't view that as, it's not a concern to me personally. I don't know where the other board members are on this.
Well, someone said something, so there's no chance if this is approved that anything could be closer to the road or the alley. Is that right, Michelle? Someone said something about if you're on the corner of two alleys that something could be built.
Everything will be further away from the.
I had a point that I would show on this. If you look at the line.
So someone just said that.
Share, but there's a line in between the lots that runs this way, this line to the 57. That's the rear property line just south. Between those numbers, go up next solid line.
This?
Those numbers there, the line just beneath those.
Okay.
That's
That's
the
the center line.
rear property line.
Which is the center line of the alley.
That's the
Right.
center line of the alley.
It's not
Look
moving.
at it, just north of that, there's, in south of it too, there's a line that says 28-foot garage setback. That defines the closest the alleys where the garages can get to the alley. Doesn't matter how wide or how narrow the alleys are, that's 28 feet off the back property line. That's the rear setback.
Can you explain the side too?
Yeah. Side,
It should be here.
this instance in this picture you have, Patsy, is a great example of how we don't want to do it. Typically there is a utility, this is a linden here, alley here, actually that's a setback, but the alley fits in that corridor. And the setback is there, and typically, and the hunters have a great example, there is, and that's why the hunter's house is a little bit further off the alley than that. There's a utility easement that goes down along the side of the alleys, along the side property. This one here, I don't know how he did it, I don't know how it got through without it. Took advantage of it, and there may well be an easement, that's why they can't figure it out, I don't know. Closest they can get is there with this building setback line, that dash line runs parallel with the back line.
20-foot private alleys,
Yes.
which we will now change to 15. In the new section, that's what you're.
Right. Well, maybe what we do is we just keep the building easement or setback on the sides of the alleys. Narrow the alley.
But didn't you say you weren't changing those?
No.
So,
The only thing we're changing is the narrowness or width of the alley. It's all changing.
but I'm sorry, I'm just listening
No,
very
you're-
intently.
Yeah, what did you just say?
You
You
said, but maybe we should
Yeah.
keep the
Yes.
setbacks on alleys to the 20 foot.
20.
No, maybe is not a good answer. That's,
Yeah, what do you
that's
mean?
scary.
What do you mean?
All I'm doing is brainstorming and trying to accommodate what your concern is and what Lisa's bringing to, is that one house, that one instance, and I agree, it's too close. We have pretty much identified that builder's not building in Evans Farm anymore. But he took advantage of a weak spot in the text that's been. What I'm saying is, future, if that house, take that exact example. Okay, say he meets that setback line, that dash line, building setback. If he meets that, let's not narrow that line further and allow him a couple more feet, 2.5 more feet. Wider house, hold that line, narrow the alley. To the,
So you're keeping the 20-foot alley easement, but you're making the alley 15 feet.
And doing that,
And it's really the same as on the, and when it's the back of the line, where you're keeping it a 28-foot.
I think we were under the impression that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I thought that the setbacks were being
Yeah.
maintained.
Setbacks.
we haven't asked to change the setbacks, so
Right.
that's.
That is the case. Okay, all right.
But
It's just as language.
just semantics. That sounded like.
No,
It sounded like it-
Well,
Wait,
yeah.
you said it twice, so I just want to make sure that
So,
you
so
have.
this,
May I say something?
It's-
There's something that you mentioned it, and I thought this, I understand your position, I agree with your position 100%. I'm not sure how it happened, and it's not right, but you asked for information from me, you said it didn't deliver. You're asking for the zoning text. The zoning text is a public document that's here. It's public, it's available. And I can either get it to you because I wrote it, or you can get it from Robin or Michelle. It's available. And if you don't know where to go, I'll get it for you and deliver it because I can. Dan has access to it too, but ignore that. I'll get that for you.
Well, to be crystal clear, this has nothing to do.
Why not? But it was just a
This
side
whole
note
thing
that
has
you
nothing.
said.
I am
and
very
didn't say.
passionate about the neighborhood that I was a early adapter to. I literally was probably one of the first, you were much earlier than I, but like within the first 25 houses or 30 houses. So without people kind of putting their head in the sand and really trying to protect what I bought into, this development could be, somebody said it earlier, it could be very different. It is starting to be very different because we were told those were condos in the front. Somebody's changed them now to apartments. We look like, a Section 8 housing development now, but that got approved. So those were not what was in the zoning text.
I can assure you, I have been with the family, I am the visionary of having very grandiose and really. This is my brainchild. I've been working on this 2007. When I first met the family and they wanted to know what to do with it, I came up and I flew down to West Haven, which is a new urban community. We walked West Haven. It was a concern because they had every right and every opportunity to just have a subdivision or else. As it was Center, Bryn Mawr, Avonlea, pick one, anyone. They had every right to do that. With they and me being involved very early on, this is our vision. And as protective as you are, and I appreciate your protection, really do. Every bit as protective. This is my baby. I go to National Town Builders Conference last Wednesday through Sunday. Everyone wants to know how Evans Farm is coming. Really cool. Going hold off because we're not far enough yet. Can't really see it. Phase 1 where you live, there's no place, community that I envision to look as nice as Poplar looks right now. Poplar is one of my proudest streets when you walk down. I was walking with our town architects, we had two, and I was walking down the street, they were walking ahead, and I stopped and just,
It's starting to come
it's
together.
starting to come.
I was,
Just to give you one more thing, the street trees that are on your street, out of the Riverbrook Street in my front yard, through the seeds, by seed, by hand, planted all those things there and made sure. Poplar is a special place to me. I appreciate what you're saying. May not look like I'm as protected as you, and I understand that. I have a financial investment in a lot for our house. Really do. Share every concern you have, and there's nothing to do that's going to cause us to.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm a shareholder of Evans Farm. And I still have the same concerns. I mean, I literally.
Had I not seen 100 communities that are probably close to 15-foot wide alleys, I would have the exact same concern.
Tony, would you be willing to modify, because I think the side yard setback is the biggest concern here, would you be willing to modify this having the 6-foot setback to edge of pavement as opposed to center line of alley width?
I think so, yes. And the only reason I hesitate, I don't know how wide those alley street lots are. And if it allows for a standard building pad that's the same size as the 40-foot lot next to it, absolutely, yes, I will do that. I'm trying to hedge.
If what? Say that again.
Every lot, using Poplar as a good example, Poplar agree. Every lot on, say the smallest lot on Poplar is 40-foot wide. The platinum section. If the corner lot where the alley comes along the side and goes back, building pad of that corner lot is equal to a 40-foot wide lot. And yes, I can do exactly what she said.
What's the width of the building pad in a 40-foot size lot?
Well, it's 6-foot side yard, so it's 12 to 4. As long as it's a 28-foot building pad. So,
What about just doing it throughout the development and then making it work for the?
So this would only pertain to corner lots, or
Yeah.
corner lots facing
Yeah.
two alleys.
but it's one along the side, one in the back. Yeah.
But just
So
to make
if
it
you
simple.
You have that bottom right corner where it says lot 903 there. That's the exact application. 7-foot wide. Have a 10-foot setback on the right side because it's 6 on the left. That's the side yard setback. That's 16 off the 57 is 41 feet. So yes, we would do that.
Talk about that, work those numbers if it's a 40-foot lot.
All I'm
That's the one
concerned
I'm
about is
wondering.
having a 28-foot pad, so I can same size minimum. I can put the same house size on the 40.
I understand what he's
saying.
saying.
It's one on Mayberry and Walnut. It's Mulberry.
Wait, so Michelle, you're saying 6 feet from?
Actually, I offer you something that has nothing to do with this, but if you want to work with me on naming the next phase of streets, you can do it all.
I will sign up for that. Thank you for the invitation.
But so
Absolutely.
Michelle, you're saying then that if it's 6 feet off the edge of pavement, that's basically that would be
That would ensure, sorry, where are my pictures?
so that would be 13.5 feet back from
That would ensure this doesn't happen.
what doesn't do that. Okay, but
To answer your question, I think the answer is probably. The answer is yes, we'll do.
6 feet.
Because I just saw 2 or 3 that were lined up.
Yeah, I don't think you have any 40-foot lots in that predicament, I guess.
So we'll just read that in.
So you'll commit to 6 feet off of the edge of pavement for all lots
On the side, yeah,
on the side, and then
for side alleys. When you say that, it's refer to it as alley pavement. That does.
oh yeah, just for alleys, but any kind of alley. There's only one kind of alley. There's because the issue is when you change one part of the text and swap it in and out without incorporating into the whole text, and the rest of the text is already applying. Sometimes it can be hard to figure out. I would, I would do it for anything that hasn't been already approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that again.
No, that's, I guess
Or I guess it's for the whole thing.
Yeah,
but-
I guess that's what. Yeah.
So can I make one other comment? So,
Oh, ma'am, could you give your name and address? Did you already do that?
She did that, yeah.
Did you? I'm sorry.
so
I got Patty.
one other thought is we're reducing the size of the asphalt. We all agree 15 feet from 20 feet is reducing the asphalt. You're giving green space off to the residents, but you're making them extend their driveway. So it's really not giving green space, you're just shifting the cost. Is that correct? So it's
The
really
lot
a
is,
cost.
or the driveway is 20 feet across, so they're going to add another 40 or 50 foot or feet of asphalt, concrete or asphalt as the driveway reaches the edge of the aisle. Also picking up all the 2.5 feet across the rest of the lot where they abut the aisle.
On a 40-foot lot.
So you get another 20 feet. They pick up 2.5 feet of driveway, and then if it's 40 foot, 20 foot driveway, they pick up another
Which they need.
50 feet.
Based on what I've seen in the pictures, they need the 2.5 feet. In some cases.
You're not giving us any extra house. Just basically shifting the cost of the driveway.
The house is restricted by the setbacks, which have no influence, or not influenced by the alley.
It's shifting cost is what I'm saying. Like it's truly shifting it from the alleyway. You're not really adding green space because it's a little bit of green
Yeah.
space. It's a
It's a great, it's
Yeah.
the same amount of driveway plus the green space.
Public comment, I'll end public comment and shift it back to Tony. I think you've responded already to the comments we had.
Do you have any other comments? I mean,
I'm going to turn it back to the board and if they have any questions for you.
I'm looking at.
Once they're done talking, and we'll confirm with her. I have no further questions.
That's the side of it.
What's that?
Before that, but was there a diversion?
Oh, sorry.
There was, but that was.
Their divergence was.
That was for the 18 feet. Okay, so it would still all be, is there any diversions that would overrule this?
No, because we're only allowed 9 this side, but they are.
Okay, because they're only, okay.
And they really can't even go less than the driveway.
Wait a minute. Okay, so you're confident that this would not result in any accessory structures being built in those structures?
This sentence, this
What you're gonna
modification will
Okay,
avoid,
everything.
will avoid that to happen again.
But they could, like, an accessory structure.
It's,
They
we can
can't,
clarify
right?
it for all structures, right? Yeah.
Okay, all structures,
Yeah.
right, because I wanna make sure they can't.
Yeah, I'm going to take a recess.
Could you please?
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna
Do you
ask
have any
that.
questions though before we do that for
We're gonna
Mr.
take a
Iron?
short recess so we can get, make
Do you
sure.
have any questions for Mr. Ironman before we do that, Ms. Knapp? We'll go on questions for Tony Ironman.
Well.
We close
for
public
now.
comment and,
Yeah, but I might have a question after.
That's fine.
We take a recess.
Okay.
Yeah.
and then, is that okay, Julie? One more question, okay. Make a motion to take a 5-minute recess?
Second.
Trustee Grumbles?
Yes.
Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
Trustee Bell?
gas expense and water.
Okay.
I love it. Flush it out.
Call this meeting back to order.
Um,
Make a motion to call this
Not
meeting
sick.
back to order.
Second.
Trustee Grumbles?
Yes?
Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Okay. Are there, Mr. Ironman, I'm going to turn to you now and ask the board if there's any questions, additional questions for you.
I would, Michelle is going to propose some language. I just want to make sure that he's okay.
Okay.
I'm happy to read the two modifications.
Yes, please.
So with those, the first one would be to install signage that indicates that parking is prohibited throughout the private alleys, specifically at each egress, ingress, and also to coordinate with the county engineers and township staff for their recommendation. Number two, for corner lots with an alley off the back and the side servicing, the minimum side yard setback for all structures shall be 6 feet from edge of pavement.
Do you have any concerns with that, Mr. Ironman?
None at this time, no.
Okay.
And then, Michelle, for the first one, coordinate with the county engineer on on additional signage or?
Minimum would be the front and back, and then any additional.
Their recommendation on where the no parking signage should be.
Yeah, additional. Oh, okay, wait, so could you read that first one?
Yeah, sure. So we have it as install signage that indicates that parking is prohibited throughout the private alleys, specifically at each egress and ingress point. And then we would coordinate with county engineers and township staff for their recommendation. So
Recommendation on what?
for further signage.
For further side, that's what the
Okay.
part was, I think, for any additional signs, like in case they thought, but also I don't want people running the signs, but that might be sufficient. But something like, private drive, no parking,
I
private
was just gonna
drive.
ask if private drive, no parking was adequate. Sounded like it was in the
Yeah,
first
what
discussion.
about, maybe it could be on one signpost, but say private drive and then, no parking on alley or something like, I guess it could be one sign, but two separate phrases.
Yeah. I think we can do something like that.
Okay.
Where would you install
We're going to put it at the entrance and the exit of the alley.
Of each
And
alley.
then if the county engineer and traffic folks have further requirement, that's what we left in the latter part
Yeah,
of the
like
sentence.
along would you object to, it along the alley, having additional signage along the alley, or would you think it just? Yeah, so maybe
see,
just.
there you go.
either-
So that's why I think the entrance and exit's the
Well,
most.
plus people
most
could run into it in that,
Yeah.
We could do it down the
Okay.
middle of the alley.
maintenance nightmare.
in the middle of the alley, yeah, so people have to go around, okay, that's, yeah, that is fine, and
I'll just say.
I do have to say, I took the residents' comments about being an early adopter and coming in here and expecting one thing. And it is kind of like if you build any subdivision, then all of a sudden, you find out that the zoning next door was supposed to be residential, and it turns into commercial, and all of a sudden you're next to a gas station. I mean, when you move into a community, you're expecting to have certain standards in place, and that can, when you're really going to be changing the appearance or use of the area substantially, that is a concern. So I don't want to see any more changes coming before the board. I mean, I'm speaking just for myself, but I don't, unless they're absolutely necessary, because I want to maintain it the way that it is. I don't want, unless it's extremely beneficial, like you're going to, cut the number of homes in half and donate the rest of the green space to the residents or something, I would approve of that. But something, I would like it not, the lot's not to get smaller or to change or anything. I'd like to, no more changes, please.
We're not changing any of the house sizes. One of the residents proposed that the sign for the private drive and alley and parallel parking be attached to the existing stop signs
Yeah, I think
on the
that's-
alleys, which would address not having a post in my yard because the posts are already there.
As long as the county
On the
engineers
individual
are
alley.
fine with that. then we just
There
have to
may
double
be a
check
problem
on
with that. We ran into some signage issues in the past. There's only legally, so, the signage will probably have to be separated. But what we could do with Mike Love is work on the exact placement and proximity to the stop sign and have it as close as possible. Like on light
Be on the
poles and
other
things
side
like
of
that,
it.
you can have no distractions.
Right.
And so,
With the stop sign, it's on the alley, which is private property.
Okay.
though, So I'll bring it up to Mike if
Yeah,
Mike likes it.
let
great.
Mike's
If not, we'll put
discretion
up a separate
prevail.
sign.
How
Yep.
could it be on the south side if you're
It can't,
facing-
it's on the other side. The stop
You
sign will
just
be.
post on
Who
the-
just faced the other way?
But then, okay, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I just want to make sure that they
We
have
just have-
problem
they have
with
to
things
decide.
hanging on regulatory
Yeah,
signs
and if it's on
specifically.
the back, though.
Speed
you're
limit
looking to the
signs,
right,
et
you
cetera.
wouldn't see it
Yeah,
on the
that's a
left.
public road sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd have to be on the right side.
Okay. Yeah. Let me get my my number because I put the paper somewhere.
Resolution number is on there too, Ben.
Oh, it's underneath.
You have the list of, you need to read on it.
All right. Make a motion to approve resolution 22-188, adopting the recommendation of approval of the zoning commission as to zoning application ZON 22-04 of Evans Farm Land Development Company LLC with modifications.
Wait, are we reading mine? Or,
They're written in.
you already read them, right, okay. Second,
Trustee Grumbles?
Yes.
Trustee Knapp?
yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you, everyone.
Ironman, you're all done here today. Thank you. The second topic in tonight's meeting, we've got to discuss the Route 23 overlay district. As most recall, there was a moratorium placed on that after the outcome did not meet the expectation of the overlay for at least two board members last year. And a list of suggested changes was put together with several parties. And I think we've gotten to a point now where our zoning commission has digested that and made some recommendations. And our zoning consultant, our legal counsel, and our internal zoning department. So I'll turn it over to you again, Robin. Let you go through that.
Thank you. So I will start with the staff report, and I will jump straight from the staff report to a different document. Michelle, do you mind pulling up the overlay maps? What I'm about to discuss, I'm going to highlight major modifications based on staff's recommendations after consultation with legal counsel. I'll go through these changes first, and then I'll go through the recommendations that the zoning commission made at their hearing. So we did update the maps for each segment. The biggest change being that multifamily segments have gone away, and so they have been replaced either by commercial or different sub areas. So you can see in segment 1, some of the parcels were removed along Shanahan Road, and then large amounts. So the older map is on the left. The mixed use districts have mostly transferred to plain commercial, which is the red. There is some mixed use that's still remaining that is blue in the new map, but a large segment of that around Lewis Center Road has gone to plain commercial. In segment 2, we did leave some mixed use kind of along Home Road, but again, a lot of that has gone to plain commercial, and you have a large industrial segment along Green Meadows Drive as well. And then segment 3, again, this one kept more of the mixed use along US 23 on the east side, but there are some mixed use that was previously mixed use on the west side of 23 that has now become commercial office as well. So those are the big changes in the overlay maps.
Where's Meyer at?
Here.
Right there. Okay. So, right. The only objection I would have to the current map would be having more potential. What's it underlying zoning now? It's commercial.
Yes.
Okay. And so the overlay is not providing really any benefit in that case, right?
No, I mean, the only application that's been filed around this area is just north of that. That's just with Village.
Yep.
What is the blue color?
The blue is mixed use.
So the Meyer area we know is a problem with the pavement and everything. And I would like to see as a buffer between the residential area, Trustee Knapp's neighborhood, Um, and the commercial district, the potential for the newly defined mixed use. In the event that someone wanted to come into that area and revitalize that, if we look at the southern part of our township, I think we nailed it on the eastern side, where you have industrial and mixed use opportunity. We know, for example, the former Giant Eagle area, the ingress egress combination there was not sufficient to make that business viable. Giving an overlay zone there is a beautiful thing because someone can come in and really take advantage of that, and it's incentivizing them to come redevelop, which we know needs to happen there. I think we also know that needs to happen where Meyer is, and some of the side shops that we see switch every year to 18 months, and really looking more to the buffer of existing residential to commercial, of having an option there, if that makes sense. That plot in particular, just that parcel, if you will, I would love to see us consider mixed use. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. When I think about mixed use, personally, I look at that as a good buffer between single family homes and a full-blown commercial district. And right now it's zone commercial, and you've got a Meijer and a Home Depot and all of those things right there. So you pass by all of those larger commercial type of areas and you go straight into single family homes. In a mixed use environment, you would have more of the outlot type businesses, or smaller places that someone living in a home might want to go out and transact closer to home. But you also have residents and built into that with the new definition in this text. It's not allowing really for, we've gotten away from multifamily altogether. So it's not as if an apartment complex is going to go in there. You might see duplex type things at the worst case, in some people's perspective, but you would see more of what you see at Evans Farm at the entryway, where you have businesses below and some 1 and 2 bedroom potentially above. But I just think,
Like apartment?
yeah, or condos above that.
But how many more apartments are even left? What, Michelle, can you go down to see the key on the right side? I can't see the key of the.
It's just in my mind, it's a smoother transition.
At the existing Meyer plot, which is south of that,
The Meyer plot is the one,
the really large one.
the really big one. Yep.
And then Home Depot is on the north side of that creek.
They have condos right there in the blue that are going in.
Right.
And then when you look at the single family to the south and the west, the reason I bring Meyer up is because it's long been discussed as the pavement and the way the road winds, and you see the business fluctuation there in that.
In the lots that are between Meyer and 23.
Meyer and 750.
750.
Yep. 750
Oh, okay,
south.
this little corner.
Powell
Okay,
Road, right?
gotcha. Where
Correct.
the hair school is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Wait, just that area?
Yes.
Wait, just that corner, but not, what about the outlots above it?
North of the blue where Home Depot is.
Just like.
So I don't think Home Depot has the
Like UDF.
Yeah,
like that area. So you see
just the square area,
Can you circle it, Michelle?
essentially, if you take that whole blue area, that little blue square, right, little blue plot,
That's Creek.
Where's the little blue one?
That's above
on the right
Meyer.
side, the new map. So if you go to the new map and you see where there's the blue square where they're developing condos right now, if you just take that and expand that blue, and I'm indifferent as to whether the service road east of the service road is changed or not. I would just like to see that southern corner. I would want to give developers the most opportunistic option, the most flexibility to come in there and do something better, because there's a ton of pavement that's not being used. There's a lot of businesses that are turning there frequently in several of the outlots, and we've seen when we have a business go, it takes a long time for someone new to come in and clear that vacancy. So almost if you go to Home Depot to the north of it, where you have that little turn in and turn out, and you take that whole corner and make it commercial mixed use,
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
It's okay, Michelle.
Well,
I just think it gives people a better opportunity to buffer that between the current single-family homes and a full-blown. If it's commercial like it is now, someone can come in and buy out whatever and submit a commercial application. I'm not sure that the folks that live in single-family homes or what have you there, it's in that, it's in the best interest there. And nor do I think that from a development standpoint, forcing an office or commercial application would be the most
but
viable.
it's already commercial.
Correct. Which is what I'm saying, that there's no benefit to keeping it commercial
Okay,
and an
so
overlay
Michelle, can you mark the
Why not?
plots that he's asking
because it's
for?
not working.
So, but now why does it say mixed use is purple over here?
We changed the colors. We thought it was too confusing, so we
I'm
wanted
so confused because now it's
So mixed use is blue.
mixed use is blue, industrial is purple, red is commercial, and that's the only zoning choices.
I know it's really very confusing.
And I think the biggest change overall is, we expanded the commercial side as we didn't want to encourage, mixed use does allow for housing. So we did expand the commercial side, or the red, I guess you could say, all throughout each of the segment areas.
I'm fine with that then.
Yeah, because it's already plain commercial and
And it is.
it is.
I think
actually-
Ben's probably mentioning for more we are going to have some redevelopment opportunities, and specifically in the south. I mean, this area is one of our oldest industrial districts, and so maybe not in the next.
I didn't
So-
think that's what he was talking about.
Fundamentally for me, if I look at the purpose and the intent of an overlay, is to add flexibility, and that accomplishes nothing.
Well, well.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, but I'm not.
So
I don't know.
but if we want that to be the case, then I'm fine with it. But
Yeah, I don't know if we have to change everything.
the overlay would make it more, I guess, efficient in some cases. But
But
I
what
guess
could
I'm
they?
just not clear on what properties you're referring to.
see where the blue square is amongst the red, the sea of red? I'm saying that if you go to that first service road north of it, so follow the service road up, go to the egress and ingress right there.
Okay.
So if you just take from that over that property line and you go south all the way down and then you go east all the way to 23, that big chunk.
So we did have that originally as mixed use.
Yep.
Yeah, but
So that's Home Depot, that's Meyer,
Yeah.
and then it's all. I mean, I see no point in changing those, but again, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But so if you did mixed use, like currently they could build another big box or build
Commercial.
any other commercial, a bunch of old strip center. They could have something like a really cool development that
Mixed use.
we're never gonna have here, but that has well then we call the BJ's with the apartments.
Yeah,
mixed use.
we define it a little better in the overlay then.
Yeah,
That's the point.
But how many more apartments are permitted in that area anyway?
I think it's 200 or
294 left
overall.
in segment 3.
190.
Okay.
It was changed.
South Warren.
In
that
segment
whole
3.
district.
Yeah.
That
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
whole
looking.
area.
I'm looking at an old version. Sorry.
Okay, the whole area
Oh,
of that map, not just one segment, the whole area of that.
right, including like south of.
Yeah, you're right.
Correct.
194. Sorry about that.
So you're not going to get that in the one.
I would just keep it plain commercial now because that's what it is. But we can always tweak this
Oh yeah.
as we go
Rezone
on.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
right. We can change the
What-
overlay.
The overlay would
Right.
incentivize them to do that without having to go through an expensive, time-consuming
Yeah.
rezoning.
And we kept the mixed use on the east side mainly because we vision more of redevelopment there as opposed to the Meyer site.
Yeah,
so.
because the Meyer, and I don't know honestly, and plus I would want residents like once this is done, they can.
Because
come in.
this is the Giant Eagle. I mean,
Yeah, but the problem is then if you ever, it's what's nice is that there's a rezoning, and they want to change the use, the residents will all be invited
Yeah, that's true.
and they're notified. With this, if we change it, they come in.
Come in and do it.
We're gonna do both of them. How do you think the residents that live on that
I just
road?
hate to pass an overlay with no benefit on that
Well,
side.
I think the whole overlay. I don't know. I'm not good in that, but I have some tweaks I like to make at some point. But I feel like I feel like having overlay kind of takes away the residents' right to referendum or to have input. So we have to approve whatever it is. And if all of a sudden they're going to start building apartments and we want to,
But that's why we made this more restrictive than it was.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
why we did that.
it is. But yeah, I think I'd rather, and we could always tweak it because I doubt that Meyer will be leaving anything.
No, they're not leaving, but they could look at making changes.
I mean, this is part of the zoning code. So, and with any zoning code, it is important for us to revisit these types of sections on more of an annual basis, anyways. So,
Yeah.
I retract.
Yeah.
anything else on the maps?
Nope.
Okay, I know Robin has more to his staff report.
All right. So, next section, section 20.03, as I mentioned, in the sub areas, multifamily has been removed. Most of those standards have been incorporated into the mixed use sub area, so essentially those sections were merged. Section 20.04, the schedule has changed within 20.04B. Zoning Commission will now schedule an RCOD work session within 45 days of each submittal deadline rather than 14 days. This was primarily to give staff time to vet the application properly before the Zoning Commission work session. 20.04C has been changed to reflect that recommendations included in a traffic impact study shall also be approved by the Township in addition to approval from the permitting authority of the applicable roads. 20.04H, condition of approval, was added. This subsection requires that no property in an application development plan shall be included unless such property is located in a joint economic development district or JED. 20.04N, we did make some changes as to what constitutes major and minor requirements for amendments. So we added language dealing with landscaping and screening features, as well as item 7, which states that any increase in the number of dwelling units would be a major amendment. So if a development comes in and they later they want to add one more unit, that's still a major amendment that would require approval by the Board of Trustees. The timeline for that process is also 45 days now. Section 20.05, we added language that prohibits fueling stations, auto-oriented uses, and standalone drive-through facilities. In General Standards 20.09A, additional restrictions were added for drive-throughs, saying that drive-throughs may not abut any residential district. The standard for street trees, we essentially increased the amount of trees, so it was prior 1 tree every 30 feet, now it is 1 tree every 25 feet. Coniferous or deciduous and coniferous trees are now permitted. Language was added in 20.09G that permits 1 monument sign along US 23 if there is no access granted on 23. And we also added crossbuck fences as a permitted type of fence.
Now, why are the trees? Why is it every 25 feet? Like I've seen some areas where they're a lot closer and so than 25.
I'm not sure why we chose 25 specifically. Previously, it was 30 feet. So we.
It's the strictest standard we have in the township.
It is, but you know, 25 feet apart for street trees is really pretty far apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the. I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know what the minimum could be.
Yeah, I guess we can change that.
Get big.
Yeah, 25 feet wide.
I mean, I know.
Or 50 feet.
I know there's a little bit of a timeline on our time frame on this, given the moratorium, but
Yeah.
we are doing our zoning rewrite. So if there's anything that we are missing, we can always modify it.
So all those changes that I just mentioned were staff changes that we implemented prior to the Zoning Commission hearing. The Zoning Commission did recommend unanimous approval of this application, so the changes below were changes that we discussed with the Zoning Commission and we changed based on their feedback. So we changed how we counted the residential units. that can be built within the segments. So previously, residential units that were already zoned or built in other zoning districts, those were counted towards the caps. We've removed that language so that it's only counting units that are approved and built within the overlay district. And I think, to me, this is a good change just because it makes it easier and simpler from a staff perspective, and also just easier also for the developer to know what is permitted. So we realized that increased the amount of units because there were some residential units that were already built in those sub areas. And so to offset that, we ended up reducing the number of max units in segment 2 and segment 3, each by 100 units. So you can see the calculation in the staff report. So currently in segment 1, there are 0 units left. In segment 2, there are 205 units left. And in segment 3, there are 194 units left. So just under 400 total units, all within segments 2 and 3.
And I think that I thought through that quite a bit. We talked about it this afternoon as well. Kind of going back to what I was saying about trying to, a developer is going to look at this, and there's got to be something to work with. And this does give them more opportunity to make a truly viable mixed-use development. And 200 units, that's a sizable amount, especially when you think of a true mixed use, right? Not a standalone. They can come in and spread that out amongst commercial, which I think would really do well in our community. I really believe that.
Are those all multifamily? When it refers to residential use, or any residential, right? But it's all
It's all multifamily.
It can't be single.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is like just standalone multifamily is written out. So this is truly mixed use. Then you have commerce generated by the residents that are in proximity, and more accessibility for residents that are traveling up and down 23. So if somebody wanted to redevelop plots in these two areas, this gives them something to recover the investment from. So I think it's a smart move. To your point you've made before, there's not a ton open. So this is really going to help drive some redevelopment where I believe we need it. What else you got, sir?
In section 20.04, again, a schedule change. So the Board of Trustees shall now hold a public hearing within 30 days after the Zoning Commission work session rather than 45 days. This was another good suggestion, I think, by the Zoning Commission, where previously it was 45 days, just tightening the timeline on the back end of it, because in theory, the due diligence should be done on the front end before the Zoning Commission work session. So just kind of giving some assurance to the developers that it will happen within a speedy time frame. So within the 30 days rather than 45. In section 20.08, in mixed use, we did add 2-family residential and 3-family residential buildings were added as permitted uses in the mixed use sub area. So it's not necessarily just apartments. It could also be townhomes or similar configurations.
So before, what was the minimum number of family?
It had to be 2 stories.
Having 2. Mm-hmm. But was there a minimum number of families?
No.
Building?
Well, I think it was always 2 family, but the big.
No, it wasn't 2 family because
I think the minimum was 3.
it was because people were asking about duplexes.
Yeah.
Written in.
It was 3 before?
Yeah.
So, but then it says 2 and 3 were added.
The advantage of having 2 is you have more space between. I mean, you have less density.
Yeah, but was 3 already permitted?
Yeah, but only in the multifamily area.
Yeah.
This is not for multifamily, so it's written out. So it's just for mixed use.
Oh, just mixed use.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But you
but
can
what
have-
was allowed there before? 3?
In the overlay report?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
the
it was.
mixed use?
I think it was 3.
But it says at 3 3-family residential buildings were added.
As permitted uses in the mixed use. So we used to have a separate multifamily sub area, and we got rid of that. So we merged all the existing multifamily into the mixed use area. And so in order to have what's actually existing, we needed to add the 2-family and 3-family
That
residential.
makes sense.
So it
So
was
those
already
condos by Home
allowed,
Depot now
okay.
are allowed still.
Okay.
You get the right amount. Because those are really nice. They're like like a basement and 2 stories above
They're
the
townhomes.
garage. Yeah,
They're
they're townhomes. Yeah, they're nice. They're building them
By Home Depot.
now. Yeah, they're going up. They just
Oh,
started
that Cheswick Village. Up here.
Those?
Yeah, they're close to the.
They make a lot of noise. I hear them all. It's a lot of construction coming on. Okay.
Yeah, further.
One final thing that we added, we did add language that prohibits any plant species or tree identified as an invasive species in Ohio
Yeah,
to the
that's
prohibited
nice.
list. The Bradford pear was the recent change that was
Also
added.
in my neighborhood, everywhere.
Mine too.
We set the
Yeah,
precedent.
falling down with windstorms.
It's awful. And so, but there's no JED on the multifamily or mixed, is it on mixed use? It is on mixed use. So why would we not put that under, I was talking to someone about putting it on the multifamily.
So I wanted it on the multifamily because, but I wanted it on the business only, not the residents that live there. And legally, that's kind of a non-starter because if you can't tax you can't just tax the business side of it. Apparently, there's some.
What?
Or just starts to get a bit more complicated at that point. And quite frankly, we don't know if if you were to have a mixed use
Yeah.
development with an apartment
Oh, yeah.
complex, we don't know that you could tax the business of the apartment without taxing.
Oh, yeah, in the mixed use, but what about in the like multifamily?
Well, all we have is mixed use.
That's it. Okay, so the residents will be taxed.
No.
Or mixed use won't be taxed. Doesn't have a JED at all?
So
No, the mixed use does, but not the
any
not the
multifamily any
housing.
multifamily that applies within the mixed use sub area would not be, the residents would not be taxed.
Which is what I think is.
No, wait, so what was the question of legal? I thought you were saying that,
Okay, so
Explain that again.
there are a couple of things. There's under the JED law, it's very strict with respect to when you can tax a resident in a JED. And you can only tax someone living in a JED if they're in a quote mixed use development. And that has a statutory definition. Obviously a mixed use development you could theoretically be in under the mixed use zoning overlay designation, but it might just be a solo apartment complex. That doesn't really meet the JED statutory definition. And so so there could be a situation where there's a mixed use development that meets the JED statutory check marks, where there are people living there. It has a mix of it's got commercial components, it's got residential components, all part of one project.
They would all pay.
And they would all pay.
So if you think of Evans Farm, the front buildings that have, they would all pay.
The
What is the
residents
def-
pay or just
No, they would
they
all
will
have
all
to.
pay, yeah, because it's kind of like one thing versus the
property.
standalone.
That's how you go at, and that's why mixed use makes more sense.
Yeah, but so what is the definition in the JED language of a mixed use? Or do you know it offhand?
It's pretty broad. It's pretty flowery in my opinion. It's a place where people can. It has a mix of uses. You can work, play, eat, walk.
All of those things are required, including working.
It's just or a place where people can do all of those
Multiple activities in one lot.
And
one plot.
And I think it doesn't truly, or I don't think that the statutory definition just envisions a situation like Evans Farm or the short north where there's retail on the bottom and residential on top. That I think that's kind of, at least in my mind,
That's
kind
mixed
of like
use.
that's a mixed use easily. But obviously that would fit under the JED definition. But I think that definition is much more broad. I think the BJ's property, because that project had a mix of uses. It had commercial, it had residential. obviously it was big and spread out, but,
You could live and work and play there. You could work and shop and work.
And if you work at
BJ's,
BJ's, you're paying tax.
yeah, or you could work at Outlots, but so.
but the board, I think, made a policy decision not to, like, for that project, you know, it was.
Well, I didn't make the decision.
Correct,
Others
correct.
did, but I wish we could have taxed them. Okay, so what you're saying though is that this mixed use will be taxed if they're legitimate. So we won't be allowing any probably standalone BJ's type applications
Right,
unless they do a separate zoning.
Correct.
And then it would have to be.
Which they did. They did a rezoning.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that BJ's property, what I think what the point is in that actual building or structure, there's only residents. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
So in a structure in the future, in this development, what we're envisioning is more than one thing.
But does it say that in the text that that's a definition? Because she was just saying that could in theory have been
Could
a
have
mixed
been.
use if that come in. So
I think so.
yeah. So
And I thought they could.
Because
what
I
I wanted to do though was different. I did not want to tax the residents. I wanted to tax
The owner of the multi
the owner.
apartment.
The owner. So Schottenstein.
yeah,
Right.
but they aren't going to be taxed, are they?
No, because they can't split the owner of the property and the occupants.
Can we tax the construction of the building, the apartment building? Like the construction workers, can we take tax? No?
On the apartments.
Not
It would be the same thing, right?
Well, not that one, but are you talking about in the future?
In the future, they will. Yeah.
Yeah, so if because I had Robin did like an analysis of the BJ's and whether or not it would have fit in the overlay or not, and it was pretty much did fit in the overlay
Yeah.
mostly, right? So that was kind of an eye opener. So I just want to make sure if we have new residents, I would like to tax them in the multifamily possible.
We will going forward. I
So
think
we
that's
will,
what this
they will have
is.
an income tax if they live in, if Giant Eagle turns into retail and residential, you
They're
live
all paying
there,
tax.
your income will be taxed.
And even if it's standalone, like someone comes and builds another big box,
Well-
and then next door they do apartments on the
They
same
call it
parcel
mixed
behind
use.
it.
Well, I'm
Oh,
sorry, I don't
thank
think standalone multifamily would be taxed based on the language provided. So,
Oh, sorry.
If it's standalone, just like Wilcox, right, Wilcox?
Wilcox.
So Wilcox, that's a standalone apartment community, that would not be taxed.
Which one is that
But
one?
it's not going to happen here.
But if in here,
Okay, it
or I'm
can't.
sorry, for this situation, if a project, a whole project had, a giant box, a couple out parcels in a large apartment complex as part of one project, that would be
That
considered.
would still be, okay, so.
That would be that would be a mixed use.
Yeah, so a BJ style development in this
Would be
overlay
taxed.
would be taxed.
The
as mixed
residents
use.
would pay an income tax.
Yeah, okay, good. Great.
sorry, Lisa, I guess just to verify. So if somebody comes and submits just apartments with this overlay,
The 2 and 3.
they would not be taxed.
Correct.
Wait, can they do that? Submit just apartments?
They can.
They can't do that
Or
anyway.
2 and 3 for condos that are 2 and 3.
There's so many units left, yes, they can. And then the
Oh,
rest
they
would,
can just come in, where
that's correct. The
would
rest,
that be at?
But that's just
Those
for,
blue segments.
we define that,
Right.
Ms. Bonnie, as 2 and 3 unit connected, right?
Yeah,
like to family
Yes.
homes, that's a permitted use, yeah, it can be apartments as well.
but it could just be
But they-
apartment?
They have to be attached.
They'd have, so if you had someone come in and wanted to build 200 unit property, that's permitted?
Without commercial?
And they would use the rest of the units, yes.
Oh,
They would what?
They would, I mean, it's,
if there were units remaining, they could do that?
I was under the impression that multifamily was out,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
like apartment style multifamily, that the only permitted use was
Yeah, mixed use.
like the 2 unit or 3 unit combination. Is that not correct?
multifamily buildings are still permitted, we did not change that language.
I thought we got rid of the multifamily zoning.
Well, we got rid of the multifamily zoning, but it is the
There's no
the
requirement to have commercial in with.
That's correct. The remaining multifamily units, the remaining multifamily units are merged into the mixed use. But yes, an individual apartment developer can apply if there's remaining units left,
Is there a way-
as it's currently stated.
Can
So.
can we write that out?
Can we, that might, I have to table it, but I was under the impression that this meant there's no more standalone, because someone can come in and build 400 maybe.
I think we can write that. I would not be able to do that tonight.
I know, that's why we have to
So we can table it.
turn it to just.
Go to the next
We could
board
do-
meeting since we're talking.
There's like
about it.
800 things on the next board meeting, so just. 801.
Yeah, just
can't-
801, yeah.
And can't we, wait, are we allowed to, yeah, we can table this,
You
yeah.
can adjourn to a time, like, a time date that is certain.
Right, and to continue.
Can we
our
add it to-
deliberations. Right,
Can we
yeah,
add it
has-
to the regular meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Continue
Yep.
and not define when.
No, you have to put a time date.
But it's not tabling, it's adjourning, because it.
Or
2.5 weeks.
Not
Is it-
adjourn.
is it tabling?
Continue to a time date
Continuing,
place
yeah,
certain.
continue,
Yep.
yeah.
Continue. And
Is that something we can pull together before the June 6th meeting, do you think?
And if we
Yes.
think we could table again,
Oh, okay.
or
What
continue
date?
again.
We have 2 weeks to make the text modifications. We can do that.
What's the,
I just want to make sure that's the only thing we're changing.
Oh, wait,
that's the only thing I had a problem with first.
yeah, we were all, I think, or at least some of us were, I mean, I don't know, I thought that,
That was out.
yeah, I thought they could not come in here and build a 400 unit.
Well, definitely not 400, but we had.
So I think I
105
understand it. If
section
somebody
2
is
and 100.
coming here with multifamily, we'll require them to have a commercial component to it.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was, otherwise, what was the point of calling it mixed use?
So I think there's a way to just. Well, I'll talk to. We'll
Yeah.
work with council on
Because
that.
What's the date and time? The 10 a.m.
June 6th at 10 a.m.
So because the mixed use shouldn't be, you could pick single family or commercial, it should be,
Mixed
or
use.
multifamily commercial, it should be both.
The only
Otherwise-
exception to that I am okay with is another Wilcox style community, which is the condominiums that are 2 and 3 units.
Yeah, I think that would. Okay, so
Does that make sense what I'm saying? So
but
if they
that's still only residential.
But two or three family, mixed family units.
Yeah.
Or multifamily with a commercial component.
Correct. That's all I'm okay with.
Wait, so does the 2 and 3 multifamily still count towards the multifamily?
Yeah. So if Wilcox Communities
Yeah.
comes and submits just their 3-family homes, then
See, that's not.
so
mixed
you
use
still
either.
want commercial.
Yeah, I still want commercial. I don't want
You-
any standalone.
Okay, I think
Right?
you want.
That makes sense because.
Okay, so if Wilcox
use.
comes and builds a couple outlots with their proposals, you're
Let's
good
just
with
call
that.
it mixed use then, and have it be mixed use.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
call it what it
Let's
is.
make it
Call it
mixed
what it
use.
is. Right out.
Do you have a
Otherwise, they
commercial
can choose
and it
pick.
should have a
Because
residential
that's
component?
the designation.
Yeah.
I think
Or maybe
we.
a commercial and
Yeah.
industrial, but that would be just industrial.
Let's just do mixed use.
So the number of the number of actual units is not at issue. It just has to have, if you're having
Commercial
residential, it
component.
has to have.
Yeah, but
Correct.
what if they came in and said, we're just gonna build a McDonald's, and then we're gonna build 300 apartments?
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean that would be.
50-50
I will
or
admit that
something.
would be hard to distinguish what type of commercial use
Yeah, I
is.
wonder-
But I will. We are prohibiting fueling stations, audio oriented, and drive-throughs.
Okay, well, what if someone came in and said, well, I'm gonna build just one tiny store, I don't know what, some tiny store, and then a convenience store without a gas station. And it's small, and then, oh, by the way, the rest of it's
I
gonna be
mean,
apartments.
can we?
Yeah.
We might be able to look at
Look at someone
percentage or
like
floor
50%,
area.
maybe 50%. I bet another township probably has some language that maybe Scott Standards would have some language, or another township that's already done this would have a good mix, like 1/3 or 50%, but otherwise they're gonna have a loophole.
I like the proportion of that, where 1/3 of the property has to be commercial.
Wait, 1/3 or half?
1/3. I think that's fair, because if you think of a 3-story building like at Evans,
But remember,
1 floor,
Yeah.
2 floors, right?
that's true. Now what about we also, wasn't an office was mixed in there too, like.
And that's fine, they can use whatever
So-
they want on the commercial side.
Oh.
If somebody wants to come in and build an office complex, which they're not right now,
Or-
I would say.
You are?
great.
Yeah, I'm probably okay with that, but maybe if they found other texts that would change.
So
the
I think there
laws,
might be just a bigger conversation we need to have. So I'd like to actually continue it till June 20th, and then I'd ask the trustees to extend the moratorium for the next regular meeting for another 30 days,
No, 30 days.
if that's okay with the board.
We'll extend it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I will
At the June
at
6th
the June
meeting,
6th
yeah,
meeting.
the
I'll extend the
moratorium,
moratorium to give us a little more
To
time.
get us to
And
the
I think
20th, yep.
there's mixed use language that maybe someone else would have where they say, hey, this has worked well. Some developers came in and, there might be a kind of an industry standard
Yeah.
for mixed use.
Yeah,
that
let's
we
take a
don't-
look at it.
Rather than just throwing a half or a third.
All right, so
Okay, is that the only change that we want to make?
we can talk with them and make more.
What?
We can talk with her and make more for the next meet, for the 20th.
Yeah, is there
All
anything
right.
else? Though,
Nothing that I'm aware of now.
Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about now? So we
No.
can do this
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now,
I
so
want to
we're
make sure
here,
that we don't
right?
have
Like,
to table it again.
right. Exactly.
Is there anything, I can't think of anything else. Do we prohibit the illegal trees in the zoning resolution right now?
No.
Are you guys gonna add that?
We don't have any landscaping standards currently in the zoning resolution, so we will have them.
Maybe we could, okay, good.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this that's in here will actually be kind of,
Help with that?
yeah, we'll probably, for instance, there's a definition section in the overlay district. We're going to pull that out and just have a definition section
Can we
for
do
all
that
of
legal-
this. So,
And we could do that legally as a township, prohibit a certain tree. So we could prohibit,
Well, they're invasive.
right, as long as it's on the list. Are silver maples on the list?
Okay,
Yeah, I'm good. I don't have any.
I make a
other
motion to
changes.
continue the hearing for the Route 23 overlay district to the June 20th regular Board of Trustee meeting, trustees meeting at 10 a.m.
Second?
Trustee Grumbles?
Yes.
Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
And Trustee Faust?
Yes.
Nothing further, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Sorry. Trustee Grumbles?
Yes.
Trustee Faust?
Yes.
And Trustee Knapp?
Yes.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.